Welcome to the San Jose Hockey Now podcast. I'm Sheng Peng, editor-in-chief of San Jose Hockey Now. You can also find my work at NBC Sharks on Twitter, Sheng_Peng, and Blue Sky, Sheng Peng.
And I'm Keegan. Now you can find me on Twitter at _hockey, my website, half-hockey.com, or at San Jose Hockey Now. This week, it's the most exciting week in off-season hockey.
Well, this week, Keegan's back. That's the most exciting thing.
And it's my favorite time of year, which is the draft and free agency and tons of trades and tons of talk. You know, it's gonna be a good week.
Yep, it's going to be a fun episode tonight, too. But before we get to that, let's talk about Bring Hockey Back, bringhockeyback.net. I am wearing my Mac Attack t-shirt. There you go. Mac Attack right there.
I'm a bad sponsor. I am wearing a Star Trek t-shirt, but that's okay.
You're on vacation, so it's all
I'm
good.
on vacation. Yeah.
But anyway, go to bringhockeyback.net. Use the coupon code San Jose Hockey Now for 15% off. That means 15% off on any t-shirts, including they have a Director of Vibes t-shirt. They have this Mac Attack t-shirt up there. They have some cool new stuff, too. They have a Perry Curse is Real t-shirt, which is hilarious. And also, too, go to bringhockeyback.net for your hockey jersey needs. So you need a hockey jersey for your beer league team, for any occasion. That's actually their bread and butter. They do great hockey jerseys, custom hockey jerseys. So anyway, go to Bring Hockey Back, bringhockeyback.net. Coupon code San Jose Hockey Now for 15% off.
Like we mentioned at the top of the show, we got a lot to talk about. We have some news to talk about, including it felt like this was never going to come, but the buyout of Mark-Edouard Vlasic. The Thornton.
It's been 84 years.
It's been 84 years.
Honestly, I love the meme that you put up of the ring.
It's done. I felt like it was never going to happen. Literally, I thought the Earth would, the heat death of the universe would happen before.
I didn't think it was going to happen too. There actually really isn't, unless they show us they do something in free agency that we don't expect or via trade. But there really isn't a cap reason to do it.
Yeah, we're talking about Thornton going to the Hockey Hall of Fame. We're going to preview some free agency options because it's going to be a fun July 1st. And then we're going to obviously talk about the draft, the Misa Frondell drama that occurred before the draft that Sheng has some insights on. And then we're going to cover just some quick hits about each one of the draft picks or ones that we can talk about because there are some interesting ones. Let's call it a interesting draft. Well, let's talk about Vlasic.
I will preview, though, just so you guys stay tuned, that Keegan and I, we chatted a little bit before. We are not as high on this draft as everybody else is. I'm actually kind of taken aback by how much people love this draft for the Sharks. But we'll get to that in a second. So I want to set up Vlasic first really quickly just to give the buyout numbers very quickly. I know you guys mostly have seen it, but I just want to put that out there. So the Sharks bought Marc-Edouard Vlasic out before the draft. He had one season left on an 8-year, $56 million contract. So because of the buyout, his AAV is now $4.67 million in this coming season. So they actually just saved $2.3 million this coming season. Not that much, really. Yep. And then they have a $1.17 million hit for the 2026-27 season. And before we get to talk about the buyout itself, I just want to say very quickly, and you guys know this, but I want to make sure that we really remember this, that Marc-Edouard Vlasic was an incredible player.
Absolutely.
Arguably the best defensive defenseman of his generation, not just the Sharks, not just the Western Conference or whatever, like of his generation. And great player. Not his fault that he just declined. That happens, right? So he went from kind of a little bit worse to bad to maybe kind of on the unplayable side last year. And so, but before we kind of get to that part of the buyout and why the Sharks might have done it, just let's never kind of forget just how incredible a player that Marc-Edouard Vlasic was.
Yeah, there's like a lot of Sharks playoff runs that are owed to Marc-Edouard Vlasic. And I think it was the reverse sweep against the Kings when he got injured. Right. That was like a huge part of that was Vlasic going down and the Sharks defense just you know, it was like Stewart and Hannon behind it, and it just couldn't hold up without Vlasic. And you know, he was the rock for all of those seasons. He deserved the money he got. He just got it 8 years after he was past his prime. So like, it sucks because all we remember of this contract of his is like bad Sharks hockey, pretty much, except for 1 year, essentially. Right? I think the 1 year
it
of it.
signed in 2017, so he had two
2
years of Sharks playoff hockey under that contract. Oh, it might have kicked in though. I'm trying to think. The extension was signed July 2017, so I'm not quite sure exactly which
I
year.
think it might have been only the 1 year, maybe. Yeah, of playoff hockey with that egregious contract, and it kind of was just the, you know, it was the pin the tail on the donkey of like, that's the reason, you know, like all these big contracts, San Jose's so bloated.
Not egregious though, I would say though.
Yeah.
At least, I mean, it looked egregious in the end, but it was actually perfectly reasonable. Even at the age he signed it, that
I think it's reasonable.
He was still so good. Yeah.
But not forward thinking, and that was the problem.
Sure.
It was like reasonable as like he deserved it, but it just showed the GM not understanding the aging curves of his own players and what's going to happen in 2 years or less.
I would argue that that's a whole nother podcast. It's not an understanding thing. I think they just had too much confidence in terms of they had it with Joe Thornton, in terms of the aging curve worked out with Patrick Marleau. And if you talk, you know, if you look at things that they said back then,
right?
they thought they knew something. Like you say, oh, we've looked at this and we're not worried, right? They really thought they knew something.
Yeah, and
that's at least what they try to project, right?
Yeah,
so.
And it didn't. That's what I mean. It's like it didn't work out. It was kind of like, I don't know. You're hoping more than anything else. So, and like I love Vlasic, but that was what it was. It was hope. And it's interesting because everybody was like, Burns is older. He's never going to live up to that contract. And honestly, Burns lived out his contract completely. Absolutely. And Vlasic did not. Right. So that's interesting to think about too.
But. And then they cut bait on Joe Pavelski too early.
Who was also the guy that
aging curve.
Yeah. So I think they just called the wrong shots there, but it's not Vlasic's fault. He deserved the money.
Yeah, he did.
So, but why? So yeah, you mentioned like, why would they do this? I think the answer is pretty clear. He's not very playable, and then B, they need the roster spot for other players to make them at least better.
I think some fans have been saying he's unplayable for 3-4 years. I don't agree, actually. I think that the first year with David Quinn, he actually revived a little bit, not like Erik Karlsson revival, Norris Trophy revival, but Mark was better that year. He was playable. And I think he was playable that year, maybe even the next year to some degree. But this year there was kind of another drop, I thought. And in terms of the why, it's not a cap space thing. I mean, now instead of 40 million, they have 44 million or something like that. Cap space. So
never going to spend it, probably.
Yeah. I think it's just simply to just clear the roster spot, and it's just 1 year of a buyout, so it's not too painful. And the Sharks aren't too worried. I think it's more of an indication the Sharks aren't too worried about their cap in 2026, 27 either, because they just tacked on $1 million for no player who's not going to be there at all for them. So I think that's what it's more indicative of. I know some people were hoping, it means Mitch Marner, it means Aaron Ekblad, it means all kinds of things. And it could mean that. It is, June 29th. So free agency hasn't happened yet. So we could be wrong, but I would say temporary expectations. I think they just want to clear, just not have someone taking up a roster spot. And they don't want to send them to the Barracuda and all that kind of stuff. Just disrespectful. And so,
I think this does kind of, like, it's been, talked about since like we got Celebrini, but I think this kind of marks the spot of, okay, we're going to try to get better. Like, we're not just like, we're going to try to add. Obviously this summer, I think they're going to try to add more than anything else. But I think it marks the, like, we're not just going to try to run out the same team and run out like what we know is a bad team. Let's try and get better. And it's like putting a line in the sand in some way, at least.
Yeah,
also,
maybe symbolic,
symbolic, right? Like Vlasic's gone, Couture is retired. So I think it's like a line in the sand kind of thing too.
When they re-signed Tomas Hertl, I think it's 3 years ago now, it was under the premise that they were not going to rebuild. And that's why Thomas came back, because he thought they weren't going to rebuild. And I remember doing the podcast with my old co-host, my buddy Nick Floor, and the only way the Sharks back then, they were not flush in cap space, obviously. And the only way it seemed reasonable to create cap space was to buy out Vlasic. It would have been really, really painful, but I think that there were pretty good cap savings, though, back then. And that seemed like, okay, if the Sharks really are going to try to do something, just try to stay competitive, whether we think they should or not, if that's a course that they're going to try to take during the offseason, 2022 offseason, they've got to buy out Vlasic. And so, yeah, it just kind of speaks to what you're saying in terms of just that it is a demarcation, demarcation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's a break.
Demarcate. I feel like I'm trying to pronounce the Russian defenseman's name right now. Anyway, everyone knows what I'm trying to say. So, and you're right, Keegan. So,
yeah, and I'm excited to
guys, a lot of drinking.
It's true. I'm excited to see the younger guys try. We're gonna try a Sam Dickinson in camp. We're gonna see what Cagnoni's gonna do in camp, and yeah, I cannot wait for Ilyas Magomed-Sultanov to make the roster. And no, I'm kidding. But anyway, it's you're trying to clear a spot, and I think there'll be a little bit more. Definitely, there's a little bit more room on the defense now. That he's gone.
Yeah.
All right. Thornton got inducted to the Hockey Hall of Fame. Congratulations, the best San Jose Shark ever.
Another great Shark. Totally expected. Totally Joe too. Holy doodle, whatever that means.
That's amazing.
Bring hockey back. People have said this to me. Bring hockey back. You got to make a Holy Doodle shirt.
Holy Doodle. I'm going to say that to every single free agent signing we have now. It's Holy Doodle. He got that much. I love that. It's very Joe.
Yeah, very, very Joe. So just well-deserved. And maybe we'll talk more about it in November when the induction actually happens. I'm excited to see the schedule. Hopefully it can work out that I can get up there, even though I know usually those kind of things, like there's a lot of games around that time. But anyway, though, one thing that we did think about, though, is, well, when will Patty get it? And someone asked me, I don't remember who it was, but someone asked me before, hey, do you think the NHL cares, get Thornton and Patty in at the same time? I was like, I don't think they care.
No.
And they don't care.
They do not. Turns out they don't.
And honestly, too, like Mikael Granlund should have been in years ago. I know that people are going to point, oh, his stats aren't as great as Patty's or a lot of other guys, but Mikael Granlund, literally, there's a great story that if you haven't seen it, but literally, I think Mike Keenan, when Mikael Granlund was in Vancouver, Mike Keenan was saying some shit to him, and Mikael Granlund's like, wasn't phased, and I think his teammate asked him, why isn't this, and actually no, what it was no. Mike Keenan was maybe trying to get a rise out of Mikael, and Mikael said back to Mike, my family and I literally thought we were gonna die trying to cross the Soviet border to wherever we're trying to get to. Whatever you say doesn't matter to me. And I'm paraphrasing, very extreme paraphrasing. You guys should just look up the story yourself. Yeah. But Mike Keenan had nothing to say to that. Yeah. And so that's not why he's in the Hall of Fame, but he's a builder basically in some ways. Yeah. He is one of the original kind of defectors, and so that's a big part of his story too. And so that's why he should have been in the Hall of Fame years ago, and that's why he should have been ahead of Marleau. And Patty will get his time. Don't worry about it. It just may not be as soon as you guys want, and it may not be. Obviously, it's not going to be with Jumbo, and that would be a nice moment. No questions. I wouldn't have an issue. Wouldn't have had an issue if Patty had gone in with Jumbo, but anyway, he'll get his day in the sun.
Yeah, that's. Yeah, it's Thornton's number one on that on that list, and Marlowe's gonna have to wait a little bit longer. I
Yeah.
think.
Can't argue with the other first ballots too, right? It was Chara and who's
Yep.
the other player?
Somebody that
Wasn't
was like,
Price. Price got passed over.
yeah, Price got passed over. It was somebody. It was easy though.
Yeah, it was another easy one. Just gonna double check just so recognize that dude.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Duncan Keith.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, two of the best defensemen of all
that
time.
dude. So
yeah. Two of the best defensemen of all time. Some of the best defensemen of all time, and then Mogilny, who needed it 10 years ago, and Jumbo. All right, let's talk about free agency. We got free agency in like T-minus 48 hours. I don't know, something like that, somewhere around that time frame.
Yep.
And some names are already speculated. Like the biggest name, obviously, Mitch Barter is already speculated to be going to Vegas. So our dream is gone. It's over.
Well, it really was a dream. I like, as I wrote last week, I don't think the Sharks were going to get him, but I actually think that I'm looking to confirm it. But I would say I'm fairly sure that they were going to have a meeting with him. And why would Marner come to San Jose? Well, Marner obviously wants to escape Toronto. And I think he does want to go somewhere a little less media rabid. And also, too, he is friends with Jumbo and with Patrick Marleau. And so I don't think that hurt either. And the Sharks are exciting. They're a team on the rise with Macklin, obviously. And the other part, too, this is the way that Sharks could have really thrown their hat in the ring. With all their cap space, they could have blown the doors out of any offer that I think Marner would have will receive from the Golden Knights. That's where it looks like he's going, or the Kings, or probably even the Ducks. And there were rumors that, and we'll see what Marner signs for, but there are rumors that Marner was willing to accept a shorter-term contract. So that would not go against Mike Greer has said a couple times this offseason that he wasn't looking to hand out any 6-7 year contracts to any UFA, which I agree with totally, by the way. We both agree on. We talked about this extensively, but it's not the time for the Sharks to be doing something like that. They're not a player or two away. But imagine we actually did this in the mailbag a couple months ago, but I think someone asked us about it. You give Marner 2 years, $38 million, $19 million a year, which is the most I think you can give a player under the current cap. And he'd always think about it.
Yeah, right? I mean, yeah, I think it's if he was willing to accept the short-term deal, if it was real, then yes, absolutely.
I mean, the rumor is, I don't know how accurate it is, and we'll find out, but the rumor is that he's going to take 4 years, $48 million from Vegas, which is still a good amount of money, but it is significantly less than he could get. It is less than he could get in an open market, which I think shows that he does care about winning. But if you blow the doors out of that, let's say 238, even 234, you don't want to go extreme, but 234, I mean, that's pretty impressive money, right? And you have to think about it at least.
I think also there's a little bit of I'll call it agent gamesmanship here, because like the agents are all kind of looking at the rising cap and going, okay, maybe my guy's going to do 12 million for 3 years, and then in 3 years the cap's going to be 115 million dollars, and he's going to make 17, 18. So guys like in this offseason specifically might not take the 7-year deals. Maybe they're going to take the shorters, which is interesting. Now obviously, like the Marner, like the wisdom has always been like take the money when you can get it, right? Like take the 7-year guaranteed contract. Why wouldn't you? So maybe it'll be interesting to see if they don't. Guys like Ekblad and Gavrikov and stuff, they'll probably still do 7s because you're not Marner. You're not like a superstar. So
I think that's Marner's calculation, that he's Marner, whereas these other guys, they're good players, but they're not game changers like Marner is.
Yeah.
I did want to, this is a little bit of a side, but I did ask an agent because I was really curious, and this is actually a topic with Marner right now with the tampering, right? And is that Toronto just trying to blackmail Vegas into giving up something for Marner? But anyway, though, I asked an agent just as an agent, just like these agents are clearly talking to GMs now. Like there isn't any question of that, and it's a very gray area. And if you guys saw the press conference, the pre-draft press conference with Mike Greer, I alluded to that. And Mike was like, "Oh, we're not actually supposed to talk with agents right now," but that's that's like the wink, wink, like. I'm not talking to any agents, and then
I just happened to find him in a bar, and I didn't realize who he was. Wow!
Or 5 minutes after the call's over, he calls an agent, right? But this agent kind of specified the gray area, at least his view of it. I think other people may have different views of it, but I just was really curious what he thought what the gray area was. And so, okay, so this is what he said, and I quote. So if you're curious what one player agent views as tampering, what is tampering in the free agency process? People talk. You can't really have substantive conversations about money and term. So that's the kind of difference. So if you're San Jose, you can be like, Mitch, you're interested in coming, talk to somebody, his agent. Probably you want to talk with Mark directly. And the agent will be like, yeah, that sounds like something he'd be interested in. Or we can see that working. And you can ask, is your player going to market? So for Marner, right? I'm sure that his agent, Darren Ferris, has been receiving a lot of calls from teams. Is Mitch going to hit free agency? Is Mitch going to be a free agent? Right. And again, you see this joke a lot, right? But like, if you follow the letter of the law of tampering, that they would be fining 32 teams.
Yeah.
And every player agent in the league.
I just hope it doesn't get to, how the expansion draft was spoiled. And you know how like it used to be that Thanksgiving was its own holiday and Black Friday wasn't part of Thanksgiving, but now Black Friday has like kind of eked into Thanksgiving. So now like Black Friday deals start at like 5 p.m. I don't want it to be like June 30th or like the draft is when we start signing free agents, like it just keeps eking back a little bit more.
You know what's exactly like this too, actually? Like Black Friday. Movie openings. Yeah. I'm gonna see Superman on opening night because my favorite comic book character is Superman.
Yeah.
I'm a big comic book guy too, as you guys probably know.
Yep.
I probably mentioned before, but anyway, I was looking, and I know it's been creeping for a number of years, last like decade, 2 decades, but I was looking at Superman, if you look at a poster, it says opening on July 11th. You can literally go to the theater on July 10th, the day before, at 2 p.m. watch Superman. So what is that? That's a good 10 hours before midnight. And you and I think, we grew up in a generation, like, I love the midnight showings, man.
Yeah.
Like, that was so fun. Like, I went to midnight showings of Matrix Reloaded,
Star Wars,
right? Like the Phantom Menace, and
Lord of the Rings,
right? Lord of the Rings, yeah.
I went to all these midnights early as a kid.
Yeah. So, and then they then started off with the 9 p.m. ones. It's like, okay, I guess like when the movie's over, it's going to be after, it's going to be the next day. It's going to be past midnight. But then they just kept pushing it, more and more ahead.
I'm trying to remember my last like midnight showing. Like maybe it might have been the reboot Star Trek. Honestly, I think they did that, and I remember going in high school and being super jazzed.
I'm not sure. Yeah, it could have been around that time. It might have been Dark Knight Rises.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember going to that because I wanted to see it in true IMAX, and back then I lived in New York, and as some of you cinephiles know, there's actually only, I don't know, like 30, 40 true IMAX size, sound, all that kind of stuff, right? A lot of screens are advertised as IMAX, but they're not true IMAX. So anyway, New York City, there were only 2 true IMAX screens. One of them was at the Natural History Museum, and they weren't going to show Dark Knight Rises. And the other one was at Lincoln Center, Lincoln Square. And so we couldn't get midnight. So I want to see that movie so bad. So we just got 4 a.m.
Nice. 4 in the morning.
4 in the morning.
But yeah,
but it was cool. The experience was cool though. See people wearing Batman costumes. That's all part of it. The midnight fun. See the freaks, the real movie freaks come out.
Yeah, that's the. But like everything's kind of just like, yeah, we release on the 27th, but yeah, maybe the 26th, maybe, or like certain places. So it's, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what changed. All of this stuff.
They just figured they can make more money doing it.
I guess so.
But yeah, I don't love it. Also, too, yeah, things like you talk about the kind of the pageantry, right? The Star Wars, right? Like I remember watching, I think midnight. I probably was the Revenge of the Sith or something like that, and seeing these like. No offense, it's big Star Wars fans out there, but seeing these idiots, like not idiots, they're not idiots, but they're lightsabering. Like
I was a kid. I mean, I was not a kid. I was like a teenager.
Sorry, Keegan, was that you? So they weren't idiots. I'm being harsh, but they're literally lightsabering, doing like they're having fun. I'm being mean for no reason. Like no, it was great. They were a lot more committed than I was. I never went to any of these midnight showings in costume, but. Yeah, like I would like to go to Superman midnight showing and see people dressed up as Superman or whatever, right? People wearing bald caps as Lex Luthor. So
apparently we're doing the death of Hollywood right now. That's what we're doing.
Are we?
It's like that's
anyway, okay, let's get back
Although
to
I will say before we move on, it is
Yes.
kind of like I don't know, seems like a Hollywood summer. Like I was looking at the movie lists right now, like here, like you're saying Superman, you've got there's 28 years later, there's Jurassic World something or other. You've got the F1 movies, like a big Hollywood production.
It's doing pretty well. Yep.
So it seems like a Hollywood summer, whereas past couple summers is like I don't even know what released in the past couple summers.
Well, we had Barbie and Oppenheimer, so
that was many.
That was a good
4 summers ago, maybe.
Yeah. That was 4 summers ago. What are you talking about?
I don't know. Maybe
it was like 2 years ago.
I don't know, man. Might have been 2. I don't know. Time gets wibbly wobbly. But. Yeah. So anyway, I don't want it to be that we're getting free agent release news on like the draft day to be like, well, Marner's going to sign with, the Predators.
Right. So basically when you see like the exact terms and whatnot, then that's the kind of thing that Angel may look into tampering. So I think there was like Besser, like something that I think Nick Kipriel's put out, like Brock Besser is definitely going to sign with something like that's how he phrased it, like pretty close to definite. That might be considered tampering.
Yeah.
That was like literally a week ago.
It's interesting that this Marner Vegas deal isn't solidified yet. This is interesting. Because like it's been a couple of days now.
And Nick Hague was rumored to be a part of it. Nick Hague has just been traded to Nashville. So who knows? Maybe Vegas is going to trade one of the players they received back from Hague in the deal to Toronto for the rights. Who knows? Well, we just assume Vegas is going to win, like the Jesse Pinkman meme that we were talking about.
He keeps getting away with it.
Keep getting away with that.
Can't keep getting away with this. It's literally Vegas. It doesn't matter. Like, I hate it. Because they understand like fully how like you just grab the best players, and then when they're no longer useful, you just put them somewhere else.
Well, like 2-3 years in advance.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Not even a year before, right?
So annoying. A very well-run organization, those Vegas Golden Knights.
Vegas, actually, in its way, they're the ones who ruined July 1st, because who's going to be the premier free agent on July 1st? If not Mitch Marner, right? It might be Brock Besser. And anyway, so I did report that I believe the Sharks are interested in Brock Besser, but from what I have gathered, that the Sharks are not on the top of Brock's list. Of course, that could just be a message to the Sharks: show me the money.
Maybe.
But I think, well, usually it is. So even if the Sharks met Marner, it'd be the same idea. What do the Sharks have that LA and Vegas don't have? Right? Vegas, LA have great weather. They have better teams. Sharks have money.
Yep, just money.
Just money.
I think we should. I think we should pick a free agent. Let's pick like right off the cuff one that's gonna sign with the Sharks. That's our will sign with the Sharks. That's our prediction, I guess.
Oh, okay, sure.
What do you think?
I'm gonna go with Matt Grzelcyk.
Matt Grzelcyk. Okay, cool. Why?
Because
we need defensemen.
Well, they need someone on a power play, And there are actually a decent number of guys that you can kind of plug into. For the Sharks would be their top pairing, but for a better team, like a middle pairing, and do a good job killing penalties, playing defense. Guys like Cody Ceci, familiar face, Ryan Lindgren, Brian Dumoulin, a couple other guys like that, right? So a couple guys like that that can go to a playoff caliber team and play 20 minutes a night, and maybe not be the championship caliber top 4 guy, but be a playoff caliber top 4 guy on a more defensive side of things. There's not a lot of guys who can run a power play out there in this free agency class. There's Grzelcyk, there's Nate Schmidt, who had a really nice playoff. But I think Schmidt, from what I've gathered, wants to win, which is obviously why he was signed in Florida for the minimum when he could have signed for more last year. Maybe not a lot more, but he could have signed for more elsewhere. And so you assume that Schmidt's, if not Florida, he's going to go somewhere where the team is much better. It is really hard, as you guys are going to find out this summer. I think you guys will find out this summer, where I think the Sharks are going to be in on a lot of things and try, but it's hard to sell a last place team.
Yep.
I don't feel like the Sharks are as active. My sense so far from talking with people, I feel like the Sharks are going to be more active this off season. And even just the fact that they're even in the conversation for a Marner, for a Besser. It's been more than a couple years since the Sharks have even been in the periphery of a conversation for the top free agents.
Yeah, we made that line in the sand with the Vlasic buyout. Telling you.
But I think that this time they are going to try with the parameters of they're not going to give out more than 5 years probably, which eliminates, I think a lot of the top defensemen are going to get that. Provorov, Ekblad, Gavrikov. But also even those guys are willing to accept shorter contracts, or the Sharks are lying to us and they're willing to give out 7-year contracts, that guys want to win. And guys are okay going to like 500-ish teams that have a chance to win. And maybe they'll be the missing piece to bring them over the top. But nobody wants to go to a 54-point team. That's hard, at least. You can find guys, but it's hard. And so anyway, so my prediction is Grzelcyk, because they really do have a need on the power play. From what I've gathered, I wrote this. Grzelcyk is open to, Cody Ceci mentioned this too, that these are the middle class guys. These aren't Mitch Marner. They don't just get to call their shot and go wherever they want and make whatever they want, kind of, right? That they're just looking for stability. They want an extra year on that contract. They want to know that basically they can retire on this.
Yeah.
But they're not just looking for, obviously they're still going to work hard. They're going to be good leaders in the room. So that's what I understand about Grzelcyk. He's a good room guy. And so I think he fits a lot of things. He's not a great defenseman, but he's a lot better than what they have on the power play now.
Yeah, and I think he's a little undersized, right?
Yeah, he's a little undersized. Yeah, you got to compliment him with Lindgren, a CC, or trade for somebody.
Yeah, what I mean is that it kind of limits his options on teams that are looking for guys that are in a certain mold, and Sharks are like, hey, we just need a guy that like is the worst on the power play. And so I think that's a really good pick. I'm gonna go shot in the dark and say Jack Roslovic.
That's an interesting one. I think that's a decent one.
Yeah, he came off of a 22 goal season with Carolina. Sharks traded away Zetterlund and didn't really pick up a goal scorer afterwards. And I think he kind of fits that same mold. Can switch over to center too.
Right.
Had
That's
kind of a resurgent one. I think they might sign him for a little bit too much money than he's worth, but yeah, I think he's probably going to be like, if I can get $5 million, hell yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. Like Wenberg last year. So
exactly like Wenberg. So I think they're going to try and pick up a little bit of a little more scoring in the wings. So I'm going to go with Roslovic as my one prediction.
Yeah, I agree. Even the center wing thing, I definitely agree with that. Even though they line up right now, Celebrini, Smith, and Wenberg, which doesn't sound that bad if Smith is ready to play center at the NHL level, which we don't know. But if he is, then that doesn't sound too bad. But Wenberg is a 3C. He's a playoff caliber 3C. He's a very good player.
Yeah.
And you assume Macklin's going to get better. Macklin gets better, so you can talk yourself into that top 3 centers there. But you want some depth. You want some just in case. You want some if Smith doesn't work out as 2C, if Wenberg gets hurt. And so a guy like Roslovic does sound like a kind of a perfect, like he won't be too in demand, but he, just right. There's still, he's not too old. So maybe just a little bit, a smidgen of upside. I still think that the Sharks, I always mention this, that they should look into Granlund if he hits free agency, but they really fucked up. I would just say it. Like he showed it. No, but he showed in the 4 Nations. He showed in the playoffs just how good he is. Yeah. People did not know around the league. They kind of forgot at least how good he was, honestly. Yeah. And they saw how good he was. And he is going to be, I think, especially you take Marner off the table too. Like, who are your top free agents then? Besser, Ehlers, Granlund. Those are your forwards, kind of, right? Those are Tavares is off the table now, right? So I think you can really make an argument for Granlund. Oh, you can make an argument for Granlund over Besser easily. Yeah. Granlund versus Ehlers, okay, there might be some debate there, but anyway, so
well,
that's my
say hello.
That's my 1 minute infomercial for Mikael Granlund. That's for every episode.
Yeah,
sponsored by Mikael Granlund.
Well, new Mikael Granlund is Joshua Ravensbergen, right? Because he was the first round pick that became Mikael Granlund's trade.
Well,
right?
yeah, fair. So, we will get to Josh in a little bit, but and then just to close off, I guess, like, what is like sort of the dream scenarios for the Sharks and free agency? Realistic dream scenarios, which I know is a contradiction. I think some people have pointed that out when they did something similar before, but I think for the Sharks, I think bringing Granlund back would be, if you sign him for 3 years, 24 million, something that is a lot, but again, he brings a lot to the table. We don't need to get into that, but I think Jake Allen would be great. I get the sense, and I reported this over the weekend, that the Sharks haven't tampered. They haven't checked in early on Jake Allen, which surprised me. And I know that Jake is actually getting a lot more interest. Like, he really is the only viable starter on the market. He's not like necessarily like, oh, he's going to win us a championship, but he's the only guy UFA out there that you feel pretty good if he plays 50 games for you. Yeah. And for Askarov, you and I talked about this before the show, that like making the environment as good as possible for Askarov, for Macklin, in terms of making the team better, it should be the most important thing on Mike Greer's sort of to-do list, in my opinion.
Yep.
And you can do that by improving the defense. You can do that by improving up front, but there's no better way to make your team a lot more competitive than with reliable goaltending. And I think you feel great if you have signed Jake Allen for 2 years, give him stupid money, give him $7 million a year or whatever, blow the doors over whatever AAVs can get out there. And you feel good if it's Askarov and Allen for the next 2 years. And everything I've heard about Allen, great in the room, great mentor. He won't mind if Askarov is amazing and Askarov takes the job. And you really need that. You can't have somebody that is basically competing with Askarov. That was a problem. One of the problems with Georgiev, that Georgiev is trying to be the starter. He's not embracing kind of a mentorship role. And that wasn't an issue last season because Askarov wasn't really up with him a lot. But in terms of long term, that would have been, I think, an issue with Georgiev. It's not that Georgiev's a bad guy or a bad goalie or whatever, but Georgiev is just, he's trying to win the number one job. That's his focus. Jake Allen is different. Mackenzie Blackwood was different in that way too, in that good way to pair with Askarov. And so there isn't anybody like a Jake Allen on the market. And maybe you could trade for a guy like that. I don't know. But if a guy is out there on the market and all you have to give him is money, and you don't have to trade anything for him, I say you should give the best shot. And there are rumors. I read something that, maybe he's going to get 4 years. I understand that. You want to match whatever you spend on a goalie, you want to try to match it roughly with Askarov's 2-year deal. Because the dream scenario for the Sharks is that in the next 2 years, when Askarov is making just $2 million AAV, that he becomes a top 10 goalie in the league. That he becomes a true blue elite goalie. And then so when Askarov hits after those 2 years, he becomes an RFA, then you got to pay up. You got to give Askarov 8 million, 9 million, whatever number, right? And then that's when you pay your backup 2 million or whoever. And that won't be Jake Allen. But anyway, so Jake Allen is, to me, a perfect target. I'm not sure. Maybe he wants to win. I'm not sure. But again, money talks. And so in my dream scenario, money talks to Mikael Granlund, money talks to Jake Allen, and you bring them in. Defense is going to be a little rough. I don't know if I have a dream guy for that, because I'm under an impression that that Provorov, Ekblad, and Gavrikov, that they're probably going to sign longer contracts. If they're willing to sign short-term contracts, then the Sharks should definitely check in on them. But I don't know if I have a kind of a dream realistic guy for defense. But if they can pull out with start the season next season with Granlund and Allen, and then kind of stitch together a defense, whether by trade or free agency or both, then the team's going to be better next year.
I think they got to get active. They got to get on there. Nick Hague got traded tonight, like we mentioned, and that was one of our thoughts that maybe we could pry him away, but he just signed a 4-year, $5.5 million AAV, so that's expensive for Nick Hague, who's like
it is
a 17, 18 minute a night defenseman right now.
Well, the bet is he can be a top 4, right? That was our premise, that the Vegas just going to afford him, and with the Sharks, he could play top 4 because Sharks has nobody else. Do you have any sort of dream realistic targets out there before we move on?
Like on defense,
any position, any of the free agents, or a trade. Maybe there's a guy that you think is available that the Sharks can realistically pull down.
Keandre Miller, but that would be the. I mean, his name's been out there, but it's been rumored to go to Detroit. But that's what I mean by get active. They got to, like, I don't know, start bidding if they actually want to get these guys.
Right.
Like Keandre Miller, or I don't know. I don't think we're going to get those big names. Any of the Ekblads, Gavrikovs, Bessers, Marners, maybe Ehlers, just because. But I think he also is going to command too much money, and I don't know how interested they are in Ehlers. Lindgren. Let's go with Lindgren, maybe.
Okay.
One of the old pick an old New York Ranger defenseman and pick one of them. That's the because I feel like Keandre Miller's probably going to move, and we all thought we're going to talk about this when we talk about the draft. We all keep wondering when they're going to like target for defense, and they didn't do it in the draft. Like, I mean, they did and they didn't, but they didn't like swing a bunch of picks to go up and grab one of the top defenders. Right. So I wonder, maybe they're just gonna say, yeah, it's fine. We'll just sign a couple of depth dudes and that's it. Hopefully not. But
well, what do you mean by depth dudes? Like, if they come out of free agency with, let's say they sign Matt Grzelcyk and Cody Ceci, I think that's fine. I actually think that's fine.
I think it's fine. I think it's realistic.
I don't know if it's a dream scenario. Do you consider those guys depth dudes though? I think they're a little better than that.
Depth is not the right word. Bottom 4 guys.
Okay. Yeah, those are bottom 4 guys, sure.
Not top 4. They're like
right.
Can play on your second pair most of the time.
Well, but that part of it though, and I alluded to this in the last couple of weeks or so, that like I feel like the Sharks want to do something. I haven't heard them directly in like trades and stuff like that, but like they haven't shown as much interest that, from what I've gathered, in some of these middle class defensemen that we're talking about, that they probably should be interested in, or you would think they would be in. And that suggests to me that they want to do something. Like, I thought that they might chase Jordan Spence. I wrote a whole article about that. Yeah. And Jordan Spence went for, actually, I thought that you offer the 53 pick, the Ottawa pick, second round pick, that would be in the range of Spence. And Spence went for something a little worse. He went for a very early third round pick. So for sure, the Sharks could have pulled him in. I don't know why they didn't. Maybe they don't like him. He is a smaller defenseman.
Sure.
And unlike a Grzelcyk, where you're also investing in leadership and whatever, right? And you got to trade something for him too, for Spence. Whereas Grzelcyk, you just had to give him money. But Also, too, someone suggested to me, I don't know how true this is. I've been trying to follow up, but that maybe Ken Holland, the Kings' new GM, that he didn't want to trade in division. So that might have had something to do with it too. I don't know.
Sure.
But that was suggested to me. I'm not sure, by the way. I'm not saying that that's what happened there. But anyway, though, a guy like that. But then if we're talking about some of the bigger name trade defense targets, right? Like Keandre Miller, Bowen Byram, that do these teams want? What the Sharks have a lot to trade, and they have a lot of futures. They have draft picks, they have prospects, they have excess prospects. But and we talked about this, I think, the last time we were together, that there aren't a lot of teams that are looking to break it down, that are looking to trade established, good, youngish players for just picks and whatever.
Yeah.
And we had nobody on our list, and then we've got one team, the Penguins, but even they are. I mean, they're still keeping Crosby, they're still keeping Letang, they're still keeping Malkin. So this isn't a true kind of tearing it down.
I don't know what they're doing. So. I don't even know. Yeah,
who knows what they're doing, right? So yeah,
I don't even know if they know what they're doing. Like, yeah, I watched a little bit of. Yeah, I think Dubas was just when he was during the draft, and I was like, do you know what you're doing? Like, you get a lot of picks, but like, I feel like you're trying to play like smartest dude at the table kind of thing.
What's mildly hilarious, though, is that Erik Karlsson would be actually really perfect for the Sharks now.
Kind of funny.
But Erik doesn't want to come back to here. But if he did want to, if he was amenable to it, that why not? He had the money, and he's still a good player. He's not a perfect player, but he's still a good player. So,
yeah. All right, let's talk about the NHL entry draft, because that was the fun weekend event for everybody. I had a great time at home for the draft, other than I was ill for the second day. But the I don't know what I expected, right? Because like going into this draft, we all knew it was going to be a little bit weaker, or said it was a little bit weaker, and then like when I was sitting there making picks, watching the Sharks picks, I was like, man, not a lot left. And it happened really, really quickly. To the point where
in the middle rounds, Scout texted me, weakest draft in 20 years.
It's
like so painful to try to figure out who to draft in the 4th and 5th round, and later than that.
I know.
This one.
And I think that honestly, before we get to the whole Misa Frondell thing, which was the most exciting thing I think about the Sharks draft, was just like, who are they actually going to pick it to? It was all this like, oh, we're going to get a lot of movement. People are going to go up. And then I think GM's kind of wised up, and we're like, nah, there's like 12 good dudes. Let's keep those. Let's try to get those 12 good dudes. And that's it. And that was it. Because nobody moved, right? Like there wasn't this huge amount of movement all around.
Right.
In the top half of the draft. There was some movement later on once we got to like Pittsburgh and stuff. But
right, and there's only one big trade, too, the Dobson trade, too.
And the Dobson trade.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting thing. I think the Sharks, like it's kind of interesting that it took the 16th and 17th pick, and the Sharks had like split the difference and were like 2 and 30, and they couldn't find a way to. Yeah, just didn't make sense. They weren't going to give them the number 2, it seemed like, and that's where we landed.
Yeah, well, speaking of that specifically, I heard that the Islanders offered up Dobson for the number 2, and I know that there are reports today that they want to keep, or Dobson want to stay in the Eastern Conference. But and the Islanders were trying to be the good guys here. But honestly, if the Islanders could have got number 2, they would have been like, "Hey, good luck."
Yeah,
you don't have a no trade. I don't think Dobson has a no trade list. They would have been like, "Hey, good luck." We're taking the number 2 pick. So anyway.
Yes, he did not. He now has a 14-team no trade.
He now does? Okay.
Now he does, but he did not before.
So.
Yeah, and he signed for $9.5 million, which is about what people thought. He'd get up in the 8s, 9s, 10s.
Yeah, it doesn't seem that bad. I wonder if they didn't have the Hagen's pressure, if they would have even traded him. I don't know. I think I maybe heard maybe he didn't want to stay there, but I don't know why he wouldn't want. I don't know. I don't know if how true that is or how accurate that is, that he didn't want to stay with the Islanders. But the money doesn't seem that might be a little high. I mean, obviously he's got to at least split the difference. Like he may not be a every year 70-point defenseman, like he was a couple years ago, but he's, he was what, 44 last year. He's kind of got to split that difference on a consistent basis, I think. But
yeah, the Islanders are trying to speed run a rebuild. It seems like, right? Like
but anyway, I was gonna say, the James Higgins pressure.
Yes,
that if not for that, I wonder if they would have even traded him, because I don't think they're trying to rebuild.
I don't know what they're. I mean, they ended up with Aitchison, who I love. They ended up with Eklund, who I love, Schaefer, who I love, and like then last year they got Callum Ritchie at the deadline too, who's a good player. I don't know.
They
retooling.
didn't trade Horvat. Yeah, they didn't trade Barzal. I think even Nelson, if I remember correctly, I think they wanted to re-sign him. I could be remembering or misremembering or whatever.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't. Of course, it's different management. That was last year was Lou, but I don't think they're actually trying to rebuild either.
I think they're going to try and keep those like Horvat and Barzal guys, and then try and build a new team around them. Maybe.
I think the Dobson case was special. Maybe he did want to leave. So let's say he didn't really want to stay. So okay, I get that. And also the Higgins thing too. That the Higgins being from Long Island and really wanting to go there, and he would stay in Long Island forever, and all that kind of stuff. So I wonder. I had to look more into whether or not, just out of curiosity, not that it's relevant for our show, but whether or not Dobson wanted to stay there or not. But yeah, again, that was a kind of I think a situation by itself, though, of a rare case where a team did want to kind of trade a young established star player for a draft pick, what the Sharks could have done. But problem is that if the Sharks had the number 7 pick, then you can talk yourself into trading that for Dobson, right? But not the number 2 pick. No, that didn't make any sense for the Sharks. So
not now.
One agent I talked to was like, that was good discipline showed by Mike Greer, because the Sharks clearly need help. Dobson can clearly help them. And he's young too, so you can make that argument, right, to the fan base. Oh, we're not trading the number 2 pick away for a 33-year-old or something like that.
Yeah.
And so it could have been done, and you could have argued, Islanders could have added some stuff to it to make it more palatable. But anyway, so that I think was a good call from Mike to not trade it for anything like that. And that's why David Pagnona, he put something out that sent everybody into a flurry before the draft. Oh, the Sharks are looking to trade a number 2 pick or something like that. He may not phrase it exactly that way, but for like young established talent, I think that's a phrase he used, right? But if they weren't going to do Dobson for a number 2, like,
I don't know what else.
Better young established and available, that's a key word, available talent than Dobson. The only guy that we've heard in rumors that might even approach it is, like, say, Robertson or Byram.
Yeah.
But even none of those guys are, I think, worth the number 2 pick straight up.
Yeah, and Peterka went too, but
right,
I don't think
he's not in Robertson's class, and I don't think he's in Dobson or even Byram's like value. Maybe he will be, but not right now.
At least not positionally. I mean, he's a winger.
Yeah,
and all that,
he's a winger, right?
So what about this whole Misa Frondell thing?
Ooh, yeah.
Talk to us about that, Sheng. I wasn't worried.
Okay.
I was never worried. I mean, there's like a moment for I was worried a little bit.
You know what? You've gone to the draft the last 2 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
You would have been worried if you were hearing the stuff I was hearing. You would have, literally, you would have. If you were you would have been. We would have been hanging out and talking to the same people, and you would have been like, "Oh, I'm not sure."
Well, I think the thing is, the more we do this, the more we just don't know. Like, we just don't know. Anton Frondell, and this is like a little bit of an aside that I wanted to save for later with the Wang pick, but there was many years of being on the internet and watching all the like internet scouts and stuff, and everybody was super in love with point production, right? It was like NHLE, what league you're in. You're, even if you're this size or like whatever, if you're producing at this rate, this is your odds of being an NHLer. And that was like how people like Byron Bader and a bunch of other like Jay Fresh and stuff like that. And they made websites off it, and like that was their whole thing. And then people bought into it. And it's not like that's wrong. Like, it's just numbers, right? Like, it's a certain way you're not wrong.
Yeah, it tells you stuff. I mean, Bader, I love Byron, and let's give him credit that, like, Kucherov, that's the one guy that, like, he saw just using this that should have gone a lot higher than, what was he, the 3rd round, whatever he was, right? So
exactly. So like That was for years. And then it seems like in the last like 3-4 years, maybe, the online amateur scouting is what it's called in my brain, is switched to like eye test stuff, right? Like people are like, oh well, Misa, like just passes the eye test more than Frondell does, stuff like that. But like Frondell also had like ridiculous NHLE numbers based on his scoring in the Allsvenskan.
Sure. Right.
So like
record breaking for
record breaking
U18, right?
So we just don't know. Like I like both players. I like Misa more. Most people do. The Sharks clearly did.
Right.
But you never know. Maybe Frondell puts it all together and he's this, tank of a player. And yeah, I like him. I think he's definitely gonna have more physical edge than Misa ever will. But I see more of a like I don't know if he's a true center, like whereas Misa feels like a more of a center long term, whereas Frondell could be, and he's played center, but he also played his best hockey at wing this year. So, yeah, I don't know. I was a little worried that maybe they would fall in love with the Frondell story, but not too worried.
Well, yeah, going to the eye test stuff too. That I think that people don't. How do you say it? And you let me know if I'm kind of overreaching here. But I think people don't use the eye test correctly, especially when we're talking about draft prospects.
Yeah,
and it's easy to pass the eye test when you're dumbing 18 to 20-year-olds like Misa was, and Frondell is playing against men. Yes. And also, too, yeah, Frondell had a couple poor tournaments, but there were extenuating circumstances. Like he literally flew from Sweden to Texas for the U18s and landed 2 hours before a game. So it may be kind of like eye of the beholder. You may hold that tournament against him, his like kind of average U18s, or he can just be like, yeah, jet lag, whatever, right? Sure. So anyway, another part too, and Craig Button talks a lot about this, and I agree with Craig on this, is that you're looking at projection, right? You're not just looking at a guy's season and the points he puts up and whatever. You're just looking at his traits and projecting that forward. That's ultimately why Schaefer went number one, because Schaefer just played 17 games. But you look at the traits he showed and you just project from there, right? And so I would say that even though I agree that Misa was sort of there's reasons why he was the consensus top forward and that he was ahead of Frondell, that the gap between them wasn't as wide as Sharks fans made it, I guess I would say.
That's true.
I saw people online talking about like, oh, Mike should be fired if he drafts Frondell. Like, okay, like, no, we have no idea what these guys are going to become. And if 5 years from now, if they drafted Frondell, if they had drafted Frondell number 2, and 5 years from now, Misa is Tyler Seguin in his prime. I know that's one cop for Misa.
That's a good one.
Yeah. And Frondell is like, I don't know, like Jesse Puljujarvi. Okay.
Yeah, you're right.
Right. Good call. But to say that days before the 2025 draft, about 18-year-olds that have not set foot in NHL yet, that have so much, both Frondell and Misa have both a ton of runway. I just thought it was a bit much. And this wasn't, if the Sharks have drafted Frondell, extreme example, but this is not like the Sharks choosing Lev Shunov over Celebrini.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
When people were acting like it was like that. It's like, no, but but anyway, I wanted to tell you about the day before the draft. So I would say myself that so I was the first person to kind of put out. I heard at the combine that the Sharks had an interest in Frondell, but came from my a go-to source. I didn't just put it out there because I heard it from some random agent or random scout who I don't know what they're feeding me, who they talk to. So it was one of my go-to sources. The same source, just as I've mentioned this before, same source that told me Sharks were going to pick Smith. Assuming that in that draft, I still believe that they like Carlson and they would have drafted Fantilli over Smith, but those guys were gone. And also, most importantly, he called Reinbacher to Montreal, and he wasn't just guessing. He knew. He knew with a reasonable degree of certainty that Montreal was going to take Reinbacher. So he's a go-to for me. And so I answered that in the story, but whatever. I figured it was me. He thought it was gonna be Misa. So in a weeks up to the draft, everyone thought it was gonna be Misa. And then last Thursday, Corey Pronman was the first one to say something like, "Oh, actually, a lot of scouts like Frondell more than Misa. Not like the majority, but like a good number like Frondell more than Misa." And then Chris Peters heard the same thing, and from his sources, and he talked about it with Cam Robinson on Friday, last Friday, on their podcast called Up. And I happened to have Chris Peters last weekend, and we talked all about it. And so there was kind of that momentum was building. But if you see the stories I put out then, I asked my same source, and he's like, "No, I think they're going to go with Misa. I don't think they're going to go with the curveball." If he, felt good about that, or he was fairly certain of that. So that's how I felt up to Thursday, the day before the draft. So I want to tell you some of the things that I heard on Thursday.
To freak me out.
And these are all from. I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus too, because
I also want to preface that I wasn't gonna freak out if they chose Frondell. I would have actually been a little bit more happy because I chose Misa, and I would have been like, "Oh, cool, we get to actually see who was right."
Yeah, exactly.
Me just choosing the same player they chose. So.
Exactly.
Anyway, keep going.
Yeah. So I just wanted to summarize everything I heard that day from some of the, I'll say the top draft people and beat writers in our business and their sources. And this was a whole day of hanging out at the JW lobby. That's the hotel. I'm sorry, the draft was at the Peacock Theater, which is in LA Live, and the hotel is attached to that. The JW lobby and bar at Tom's Watch Bar, I think it's called. That's where the NHL had a media reception there. And then at Hank's too, which was a bar that we went to late. So I was out all day talking to a lot of people, agents, other writers, right? So, and I want to emphasize, this isn't throwing anybody under the bus. This is just a accounting of what I heard from people that are very smart in our business and from their sources, and they all have sources and legitimate sources, like scouts and agents and whatever, right? So I heard Chicago. I heard Chicago wants me some more, which that was the thought going to the draft. I heard Chicago wants Frondell more from a couple of people. I heard from a couple of people. Again, all people. Again, top beat writers, top draft people, and agents, and also team employees that were there too. NHL team employees were there too. This is the pool I'm talking about. So not just random people. That Chicago, I heard from a couple people that Chicago was convinced that they're getting Misa. And another source told me that he talked with a few scouting directors, and the scouting directors believed that the Sharks were taking Frondell. I talked with somebody in the Frondell camp, and what they told me was actually another went in the other direction, and they told me that Chicago and Utah have shown a lot of interest in Frondell since the combine. San Jose has not, right? And that could just be like phone calls to the agent, just talk about different things, right? Not ever saying like, "Oh, we're going to draft your guy," but just like, just checkups or whatever, right? I talked with somebody in the Misa camp, and the Misa camp was sticking with the Sharks are going to pick Misa.
Yeah.
And then someone suggested to me too that the Sharks, that he kind of heard that the Sharks are going to trade number 2.
Great. So we're all over the map.
Exactly. And so I was very, very careful. And okay, so I'm sorry. the thing that ties it all up is I asked my source that day, my go-to guy, like, what do you make of all this? And he replied, I don't know.
Good.
So,
it makes sense.
But, and I would tell this to anybody interested in making this, making it in this business. One great source is better than 100 good ones.
Mm-hmm.
Like I told you, I was talking with all these different things that I was hearing were from legit people. Again, I'll say it again, from team employees or from agents or top beat writers or from top draft people.
Mm-hmm.
And all legitimate sources, really. And all, I assume, I don't know, I assume talking to legitimate sources too. But one guy you really trust is worth, because I didn't know who these guys were talking to.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I didn't want to put that as these, that I don't want to put that, I don't want to put my name behind it, basically. So that's why that day I didn't put anything out about it, because I wasn't sure. And my go-to guy wasn't sure at that particular day either. And the only thing I put out in the story was that Frondell had a lot of momentum, which was accurate to that day. And that the people that I had talked to on Wednesday and Tuesday that were very, very confident on Misa, a couple people besides my go-to guy and somebody else, that they weren't so sure anymore. Not that, whatever, not that they changed their mind or whatever, but they just weren't so sure anymore.
Yeah.
And so that's why I was very, very careful, because again, I was being fed all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And so you can understand why it was so confusing, all the stuff people were hearing online. A lot of people, like, that was a lot of people asked me, like, and I wrote about it, like, agents, players, or agents, agents, other writers. They were asking me who the Sharks are going to pick at number 2. I got that question so many times on Thursday. And, I starting to sound like Frondell a little bit, but like, but I didn't want to put my name behind it, and so I didn't write anything. And but you started seeing, though, a lot of mock drafts come out. And again, I'm not putting it on no aspersions on anybody, but that's the reason why all those mock drafts started changing, like, really,
Every
literally
day.
a night, like a night before the draft, because that's what everybody was hearing.
Yeah. Well, here's the interesting bit
Thursday.
was, like,
Yeah.
there was a sharp sometime on Friday, there was a sharp change in the betting odds to Misa at number 2.
Yeah.
So, like, that's always interesting to me. Like, where does that come from?
Can I be honest? Like, there's actually a fair chance that, okay, so I woke up on Friday, the day of the draft, and I texted my go-to, and what do you think? And he told me what I put on the story, that Misa 90% sure.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
I would guess, honestly, that a lot of the betting odds are, I think a lot of it is looking at what people are writing. So if a lot of people are writing Frondell, then it starts to lean that way.
Yep.
Right. And then when a Sharks beat writer says Misa and is pretty sure about it, and is the most sure about it, I think I didn't realize this when I woke up, but Freeman had said it that morning. I think, I don't know where, that it was going to go exactly like it went. Schaefer, Misa, Frondell, and Daniel Way. And I think Pronman had put out something that morning too, that, again, I swear I didn't see, that he had Misa number 2, but he said it was close. He said it was a coin flip, I think, or something like that. But I didn't see that stuff. But so I'm sure so I shouldn't just say, I shouldn't even apply that it was
It's all you.
like, yeah. So, but I think that those are 3 things that people
happens.
see, though, that definitely Friedman by far. Prodman, and then I put out there, and also I put out, I was very sure too, and so that's going to change your betting odds. So, right, like, if you're going to look up who the Sharks are going to draft, like, yeah, I mean, you're going to look at a national guy, you're going to look at the draft expert, and then you're going to look at the local beat writer. So yeah, so I think that's a part of it. I think that's a part of it. So but anyway, so that's how that went. So that's how the Thursday went. And anyway, that's how I ended up on Friday morning going very strong with Misa. And I was a little worried at the end there, just because you're always worried, like you put your name behind something.
Yes.
But again, one great source is worth 100 good ones.
I think it's I'm hopeful that this is the highest the Sharks are going to pick, unless they win a lottery in the next like 5 or 10 years. I'm hopeful. I think this is I think you want one more. You want some defense, obviously. Like the defensive prospects that are going to fill into the top pairing, but I think you've got number 4 in Will Smith, number 2 in Misa, number 1 in Celebrini. You have a number 7 in Eklund. It's been a couple of drafts. We got to move forward. So hopeful this is the highest. And I think Misa is like I'm really hopeful for them to solidify the center group with those two. I think that's a great, amazing center core. And that's all that people are talking about on the write-ups too, about why the Sharks are getting an A+, is Misa's a huge part of it. It's like hard to go wrong after.
Fair. A couple small things. First, JD, our buddy JD Young, Locked On Sharks. He was around a couple of those conversations that I had. He heard it, so he can cooperate. I'm not making this stuff up out of smoke. He heard a lot of it too, I'm sure, from his own people there too. So I want to say that. Also, too, I think that it's going to end up Smith being wing. This is my prediction. That's everybody's prediction, but that's obviously a big topic conversation that is going to end up being. It could be all of them going to wing at certain points, but I think that it'll probably be Smith being the majority of it. And I also want to ask you too, because we didn't get to do your draft rankings list. Where did you have Frondell?
6, I think.
Ooh, okay. I did talk with Scout too. Sorry to jump in there, but this is when the Frondell smoke was starting last weekend after Corey and Chris Peters said what they did. I talked to a Scout NHL organization that didn't have Frondell in their top 5. They weren't huge fans of him, so it's not like your opinion was the only one that had Frondell out of the top 5. So
yes, I had him at 6. I had Schaefer, Misa, Martone, Hagens, Danaway.
Yeah, Danaway ahead of Frondell. Okay.
I like Frondell.
Oh, go ahead.
I do. I like Frondell. I see. Honestly, he reminds me of like, I don't know, more of like a scoring winger than he does like a true center. And like that's the way that I don't know. I think you're hoping, and there's a lot of hope there, but it's not like it's anything cut stone, because he could just put it all together, because and that's the other part, is the inconsistency with him. Like some games you watch him and you don't know that he's like doing a whole lot. It's like when you used to watch like Timo Meyer and you'd be like, the hell's Timo been for like 4 games? And then he'd go and pot 4 goals in a game and be like a superstar. It reminds me of that kind of thing. Like it's not consistent on a game to game basis. And then when he's really good, he's super good.
Right.
Like that's just the way that his year went. And I think he was heralded as like gonna be a superstar top 5 pick. Turns out he is gonna be a top 5 pick, but I think it was kind of a strange up and down season. So I don't know. I like him, but I think if you're trying to get a center, I think it's more likely that Misa is the center that you're gonna need in the future.
I think it's eye of the beholder, right? Because some people think that he can be a center, and with his thickness and whatever, that he can be maybe a more offensive Barkov, not as good defensively, right? But
Barkov's also taller, right? Like Barkov's like 3 or 4 inches taller, probably.
Yeah, so too. But that's sort of like the lazy comp for Frondell.
Everybody loves the Barkov comp.
Yeah, if you see that vision, then that could be why for other teams that see him as a center, that he might go higher. But the last thing I wanted to mention, at least on my end about this, is that Mike did slip though, because we were trying to press him on. I was trying to press him. When did you guys decide on Misa? And he was like, a while ago. And I was like, oh, and I asked a while ago, what's the timeline on a while ago? And he was like, a while ago. And then he said something like, well, he was always number 2 on our list. And of course, I mean, we could guess, but number 1, that's got to be Schaefer, obviously. So
yeah, that's a slip though, because like
it is a slip though. I got
you can't say
something.
number 2. You got the
You
number 2 in there. Because I think when like Eklund was drafted, didn't they say like he was like
Yeah,
was
we
number
got
1 on our
Dub Jr.
board?
to slip. He said Beniers
Oh, that's right.
was his number 1 that
That's right.
year. So
That's right. But Eklund was
but
2, right? Yeah.
so one more thing I want to mention too. Maybe we'll find out years from now, but yeah, it's still hard to figure out why there's so much smoke about Frondell. Some people
Yeah.
think the Sharks are just playing like just basically fucking around and you know, Micro doesn't want to be predictable, and so gonna throw all this stuff out there. Some people think that the Hawks actually wanted Frondell more than Misa, and so this was a message to the Hawks: hey, let's make a trade here. Actually, Elliott reported that Utah really wanted number 2. And so that could have been for, well, that maybe Utah really wanted number 2 and they really wanted Frondell. I don't know about if they wanted Frondell or not, but again, that could have been a message to Utah. So love to find out one day what this was, or it could be as simple as my original source alluded to at a combine. They like Frondell, and maybe don't trust what Mike says when he says that they knew for a while. I don't know, but anyway, that's interesting to find out one day kind of where this all came from. So.
Yeah. Bunch of smoke and mirrors for a draft that nobody traded in the top 10 after that was like, oh, we're
again,
gonna get
which never happens, right? Yeah,
never happens. It did not happen. We're not gonna get fooled again next year when this happens again.
We'll get fooled again.
We're not gonna get fooled again. All right. Their next pick in the first round, which was at number 30, which my prediction was that they would not pick at number 30, and the Sharks decide we've lost Sheng. I'm gonna put it back. There we go.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah.
I was trying
to type something. Yeah.
My prediction was they were not going to pick at this pick.
Right. Oh, I predicted they would make this pick.
You did. I thought they would trade up or down or trade out of it or something. And they fucking just said, nah, we're just gonna stay. And they chose Josh Ravensbergen.
Can I say that interrupt before we talk about Josh? That he prefers Josh, by the way. So just
he does, yes, yeah.
But that I heard it was a crappy draft. This was indicative of a crappy draft. No one wants to move around that much in a crappy draft. So.
They don't. They don't. And that's and interestingly, Josh Ravensbergen wasn't the first goalie off the board, which people forget too. Like
that was probably the biggest surprise, I think.
Yeah,
right?
like 20, I think, wasn't it?
Right. And I thought people like Frolov more than what's it, and Andreoff, or I don't know.
Andreoff,
yeah, Andreoff, yeah. So.
Yeah, me too. I mean, there was like good for them. I mean, I don't know how to say this. Like, goalies are voodoo, so it's kind of like there's two schools of thought, right? You pick the guy that Josh Ravensbergen has got the pedigree, he's got the size, he's got the athleticism. Maybe it's not all there, or you pick the smaller guy who's kind of put his game together a little bit more quickly.
Frolov?
No, the other
other guy.
Yeah. And
was Ravensberger your number 1 goalie?
Yes, for sure. Okay. He's also like with goalies, I think especially if they're drafted in the first and they have that like first round draft pedigree goalie, they also just become good trade chips, right? Like he's going to go back to CHL for many years. He's going to do probably pretty well. And he's just going to keep developing and developing. And like, unless he becomes a superstar and just like bolts into the pros or whatever, but you've got control of this asset that can be traded for the next 5 years. And it's not like you're expecting anything from them. So they retain their values. What I say, it's like buying a really good car from a good company. You know, it's like they retain their value more often than not. It seems like. So
I
mm-hmm.
agree and disagree.
Mm-hmm.
Goaltending's funny.
It is funny.
Yeah, like I never had an issue with the Misa pick. Never had a second thought with it because you can never have too many good centers. If you have too many, you can trade him.
Mm-hmm.
You can never have too many good defensemen because if you have too many number one defensemen, you can trade them. You can't have too many number one goalies though.
You can.
And there's also a timing thing that may force you to trade a number one goalie for less than maximum value. And so we've seen some cases where goalies go for a lot, like Askarov went for. But there's also scenarios in the past, like guys like Jonathan Bernier, if we're going really pulling back, right? Like number one in a waiting, but they had Jonathan Quick. They didn't really go for it that much. I don't think he went for that much comparatively. Askarov went for more.
Sure.
And so I don't necessarily agree with that in terms of they do have value, but they don't have maybe as high value. Let's say Askarov turns out to be Igor Shesterkin part 2. Let's say Ravensbergen turns out to be Askarov as a prospect.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not so sure that when we get to that point 4 years from now or whatever, that Ravensbergen is going to get back to first. You just don't know what the market's like. These goaltending, again, there's so few positions. There's only 32 starting spots, I mean to say. That it depends on need in the market. It depends on somebody like the Sharks with Askarov. Like Mike has shown, Ravensbergen's the highest goaltending pick in Sharks history by far. Their highest before was number 55, and it was the third round back then, 1996, Terry Friesen. And so it depends on sort of if there's a team out there or a GM like Mike that has a philosophy of I'm going to spend big on goaltending.
Yeah,
which not every team has, right? Like Vegas wasn't going to spend that, as we've seen, right? How what they've done with their goaltending over the years. They don't think that, and I think a lot of teams think kind of like in a Vegas way. LA recently seems to be like that too.
I think it was just the recency of like Spencer Knight and Devin Levi going to Florida.
Fair.
Or from the Florida picks, you know, like
yeah.
They traded away Devin Levi, got themselves Sam Reinhart. They traded away Spencer Knight, got themselves Seth Jones, and they end up like winning 2
Seth
cups.
Jones wasn't worth that much at that time, though. Let's be.
I know, but I mean,
like, got a first 2 out of it too. So
but they did. So I'm just saying that like they don't have like if your superstar defenseman hits or whatever, like they're gonna have way more value. But they seem, as long as they stay on this track, like they have some value even 4 or 5 years later when you're trying to make a trade if you need to. Or he turns out great and he's just like pushing Askarov in 5 years. But I think it was a great pick. That's my opinion of it, just from a value perspective. I really liked it. It was one of the people that I considered picking at the same spot because the name started to fall off really quickly. And I honestly thought he was going to go before that because of one of these teams just deciding they needed to add that to their goalie pipeline. And he's a great goalie. So was not mad about that pick at all. We all kind of thought they would move, right? At some point.
I know I said what I said about goaltending values, but I actually agree. I think it was an excellent pick just because this draft being weaker, that at that spot at 30, that it's not like you were going to get a guy that you felt good was going to be a top 6 forward or a top 4 defenseman or top pairing or first line guy. So you pick the best goalie out there. And so his value in 5 years might be the trade value. I mean, might be the same as a Blake Fiddler or somebody like that you get in that range. Because unless Blake Fiddler turns out to be a number 1 defenseman, which he probably won't be. So anyway, so I actually agree with you. Even though if it was a deeper draft, I might be like, I don't know, but it wasn't. And so I'm actually with you on that. I think that this was a very good pick. I have no issue with this one. So, oh, by the way, we should mention too. So just so we know, what was the half wall hockey pick at number 3?
My hidden gem of a pick or prospect is Jack Murtagh. I love Jack
Okay.
Murtagh. So my team has got a lot of you know, skilled offensive guys, right? We've got Bichkov, we've got Hudson, we've got
Mm-hmm.
Bouillon, we've got Celebrini and Misa, a lot of skilled guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that you need more. You need a little bit more grit. I also need more gritty wingers specifically. I
Okay.
have a lot of smaller wingers, a lot of long-term projects, stuff like that. And Murtagh's not huge, but he's like 6'1". He great skater, great shot, like a really, really good shot. North-south kind of guy, gets the puck back. He is August birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And he's already like 6'1", filled out a little bit. And he's going to college next year. He's point per game in the USHL. I really liked his profile
Okay.
statistically, and then watching him, I was like, yeah, that's a scoring, like a complimentary middle six winger that gives you a lot of jam, and I really
Mm-hmm.
liked that. And I was like, some team is going to pick him. I thought that he was going to go in the late 20s, 30s, because
Mm-hmm.
just like especially in this draft, people would love that profile. And he ended up going 40. So
40 to Philadelphia, I see. Yep.
yeah, Philly, makes so much sense. He feels like a Philly pick.
Mm.
I'm not gonna say that he's gonna be like, a first line winger, but I think there's a role for him in a 50 point winger that puts a lot
Okay.
of jam in there. So I liked
That's
him a
very
lot.
valuable. Very
Yeah,
valuable.
and he
Okay.
also played a little bit of center too, so you never
Mm-hmm.
know.
Okay.
I also don't think he's like a super good playmaker, but for my team, it was like that was the guy, or it was Ravensbergen because I still need some
Oh,
more
really? Oh,
goalies.
okay. He was
He
very
was
much
there.
there. Okay.
I ended up
Okay.
going with Murtagh, but that was my.
Okay.
I
Okay.
really thought he was going to go a little quicker, but yeah, 40 makes sense for him.
Okay.
But he's
Anyway.
also, yeah, it's not the most exciting pick, but it filled out my team really nicely.
Yeah. No, I think there were after Ravensbergen and Wang, there were a lot of not exciting picks, but maybe they make sense though, right?
Yep, yep.
So, but anyway, number 33, Wang.
Wang. Oh
Yeah.
man. We should talk about this. So
Yes.
this is like I think the most controversial part of this, right?
Yep.
Like of the whole Sharks draft. Why didn't they choose Blake Fiddler, or why did they trade up? Um,
Maybe there was not a trade up though. I guess that's right. Like there
yeah,
wasn't that much movement. So
I think that's the real answer. And once
yeah.
Aitchison, Smith, Reed, Merca, once they're gone, it's the rest of the guys. Like it's hard to foresee a clear path to a top four defenseman. Like it's not impossible. Like one of these guys is gonna. It happens every year. One of these second rounders or two of these second rounders are gonna end up being great top four defensemen. Um, but it's not as like cut and dried, or there's not as clear of a path. And I think the
Right.
Sharks knew once they couldn't trade up, or they just didn't feel like they wanted to miss out on adding Ravensbergen or what have you. They went with Wang and even over like Rombach and Fiddler and Amico.
They also passed up Brusevich for Ravensburg, and so after Brusevich at
Yes.
31, there was a bit of a run there on defensemen.
Yes. It was like
Yeah,
the third tier, right? So you got your number
yeah,
one, which is
Rombach. Yep.
Schaefer. Two is that Reed Demertka, and then
Right.
three.
Aitchison, Smith. Right.
Yep, and 3 would probably be like Hensler,
Right.
Boumediene, Brusevich, and then Fiddler, Wang, Robbback, all those guys.
Yep. Amico, Kettles. I see. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think people are saying stuff like I've read online, like, "Oh, why did they just take him at 53?" And it's like, he's gone. Like you can see on the draft board, one of these teams is going to take Wang. Like just that there's this huge run on defense. If you don't pick him there, unless you can move up, he's going to be gone. So they really liked him. You can see why. It reminds me of the Simishev pick from 2 years ago that the not Coyotes made.
The then Coyotes made
The then Coyotes made
number 6.
at number 6. Obviously, Wang is not Simishev. Simishev is a better prospect. But it's similar, right? You take the towering, skate like the wind defenseman, and then you hope. And there's a lot of hope. But I could see it in some ways, and it makes sense. I think it's not like there's there's probably a more statistical chance that a guy like Fiddler makes it to the NHL than Wang. Just because Wang has had
Well, he literally just learned to play hockey
learned to
seriously.
play hockey. So it's not the traditional route. Let's say that. So it's definitely more likely that guys like Fiddler or Rombach, they make the NHL, but you're playing the odds that Wang is going to have a higher ceiling. It's a boom bust classic pick that I'm not mad about. I'm not gonna get super mad about them not picking those guys. One of these guys will make it though, and then we're gonna be pissed. We'll be like, God, they should have chose Peyton Kettles because God, look at Peyton Kettles. He's amazing. And then this happens every year. So
there was that boom bust situation in 2018 when he picked Ryan Merkley over Keandre Miller, who's the guy who hit one pick after, but then nobody else made hit right around there. And so kind of see what the Sharks were seeing there that year. So in defense of that pick. But yeah, I don't really have any issue with this pick for the same reasons that you do not, that they did not seem to care for these other guys as much, and that there is this ceiling with Simon Wang. And so you kind of just bank on that keeps growing, and that keeps growing exponentially like it has since he was 14. And if it does and keep growing like that way, that he's going to be probably better than this group of defensemen that we mentioned. And I wanted to ask you particularly about Fiddler because that's what a lot of Sharks fans honed in on him. I got a question afterwards from a reader, Alex, and he asked me directly about it. And I have not watched Blake Fiddler play really, so I thought you'd be better to ask about it. But based on just my impression of it, like, this Fiddler kid is fine, but he's not like special. No. He's right-handed. I guess that's the one thing that makes him
yes,
special.
he is right-handed, and he is large. He has NHL
anyway, what do you think of him?
Yes, he's right-handed. He's large. He has NHL bloodlines. I watched Vernon Fiddler as a I guess not as a kid, like 15 years ago.
Oh yeah, he was a penalty killer.
Yep.
For the Preds.
And I like Blake Fiddler, but I don't. Yeah, he's not. I don't know what the word is. He's not special. Like it's not like Fiddler is the guy that jumps off the page at you every time. Like he has good defensive habits. He is good skater. He can get a shot on net, but it's not. I don't see like the game breaking thing that you're like, yes, that's why teams are after right-handed defensemen. It's not just because they're right-handed. It's because they can make plays with the puck in the offensive zone as well, and like they have a special element to them, and they're also right-handed at 6'4", and he doesn't have that. He's going to be a good hockey player. I think he will be a NHL hockey player, and I'm not like he doesn't have too much to add to get there, but I don't think it's going to be a huge miss in that way. It just doesn't. He doesn't put it all together in any way that makes you think that he's going to be that. And normally by this age, they do. But again, every year there is 2-3 defensemen in the second round that do like make it. It's just the way that it ends up being, is that defense takes a little bit longer to put together, and it kind of a little bit of a crapshoot. So honestly, the best thing they probably could have done was find a way to trade, like, to get 5 second round picks and just take a bunch of defensemen, and then one of them will make it, right? Like choose Simon Wang and Fiddler and Amico and Kettles. And
well,
then
what I wish they would have done, and I don't know if they would have, because I think that there's one too many small wingers on the Sharks, William Eklund, to add Victor to that too. But that's not my philosophy. I think that's closer to Mike Greer's philosophy, that 30-33, if you go to the Puckpedia Perry pick value chart, which is my favorite one, I think it's the most accurate that I've seen, at least. That 30 and 33 together are pretty close to 16 of the Islanders. And it would have been an amazing story, obviously, if the Sharks had traded 30-33. I understand 30-33 wasn't enough to get you, say, number 10, the number 10 pick, and draft Victor Eklund that high, but 30-33 for 16 because Victor was falling just a little bit, just a tad bit.
Would have been fun.
Would have been fun, right? But anyway, I don't know. I asked Chris Morehouse the direct question of, obviously it's not his decision, and it's probably asking too much, too inside baseball. I don't think he would have. He didn't answer it, and I don't think we'll ever know the answer to that. But that would have been fun at least.
Do you know who Blake Fiddler reminds me of? Is
sure.
A little bit like Dylan McIlrath. Have you watched Dylan McIlrath in his career?
Oh yeah. Wasn't he was a top 10 pick, but he was in the age of the Griffin Reinhart, the
big guy.
Maybe a little skating's a little iffier than you like.
Yep.
Defensemen that were picked in the top 10.
Yeah, I think he was a 10.
Right. And then Griffin Reinhart, we know, was 4. So
yeah. And like that's the kind of thing. I think he's gonna be an NHLer. And that seems to be the way that you can see his career going, but there's nothing that jumps off the page at you whenever I've seen him.
Okay. Well, very quickly. Oh, go ahead.
And there also hasn't been a ton that jumped off the page with Wang, other than like, he's a great skater, and he's like more interesting than anything else, right?
Well, like learn hockey, So
like
serious hockey. So
like if you're looking for a player that can play hockey better, Fiddler plays way better hockey than Wang does. Wang doesn't play not bad, but like the decision making is a little bit questionable with Wang for sure.
It goes into what we talked about, that you're not drafting them for their season this past season. Your season, what they did this past season, you're drafting them on projectability.
100%.
Right. And so you see the skating with Wang, and so like, okay, if he can learn everything else, then we've got somebody that it can be like a legit top shutdown defenseman. So I think that's again goes back to that. But before we move on to pick 53, Cole McKinney, who was half all hockey's pick.
This is the easy one. It was the highest ranked player I had left on my board, which was Malcolm Spence.
Okay.
Malcolm Spence, another draft for need / I knew that this basically like this player's going soon, and he's the best value that I can get from.
Would have been a great story with Misa too, because they're really good friends.
Exactly, and
he went 43, by the way. Go
he went 43. Yeah, so that honestly a little bit farther than people thought he would. He was like projected as a top 15, 20 pick even going into the year.
Yeah.
I really like his game. I think there's some ups and downs with his play. But he fits the mold of has more skill than a guy like Bartek, who I took ahead of him, but has a higher chance to I think, to make his real ceiling as a top 6 player than Murtagh does. But there's a little bit more risk in his profile just because he hasn't been as consistent. And I really like his handling skills. I really love his skating's okay. It's not great. Great puck handler, and those kind of guys that like can pop in games in a way that you normally get in like a top 15 guy. He can do that. It's not always there. And I don't know. I like him. He also fit a need of another bigger winger, especially size and weight wise, that I needed on my team. So I've got great center depth. I've got Celebrini, Misa, Kulig. If Kulig stays at center, who knows? But he's also a winger flex. And then my wings just needed more meat, and Malcolm Spence was kind of the perfect pick for me there. So
okay.
And there wasn't a lot of much more value there in terms of high upside potential guys.
Oh yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there.
But like Spence went 43, so like he was projected. Craig had him at 16. He was projected in the top 20.
Yeah, I think a lot of people liked him in like the late first round.
So I think there's still obviously risks there with him. So I'm surprised he made it to 43. I thought he was going to be gone in like 36, 37. But I think the run on D really kind of changed things. Teams were like, oh shit, all these big defensemen are going to be gone. I got to pick one.
Right.
So I'm happy with it, but I think it's more likely that Murtagh and Spence make the NHL than Wang and Ravensbergen, but only because, well, Ravensbergen will make the NHL, but you never know with goalies. Only because goalies are voodoo, and then Wang is a real project, a real
Ravensbergen and Wang, they'll probably have better chances to be impact players.
Exactly. They probably have way more likelihood to be, and plus it's 2 wings versus goalie and 6'5" defenseman. So yeah, I think I went for the safe route on this one because I took so many swings in the last like 3 drafts before this that like got to go the safe route.
Okay.
Get some good depth.
Right.
And Misa's already there, so
right.
Let's talk about Cole McKinney.
Yes, number 53.
Also a guy that I was kind of sure was going to be gone by like because I thought about him as well. But I thought he would be gone. I think it's a really sneaky good pickup. I'm not going to say that I think Cole McKinney's going to be a top 6 center in any way, but he has a lot of same thing that the Sharks love to draft, a lot of makings of a really good third line center. I don't know. I wonder like the philosophy here, like because they've done this a few times, right? Like they single out these guys that feel like a specific guy. Like Cole McKinney feels like a third line center on a good team in the future. Hopefully he'll be there. But they did the same thing with Bstad and Stopchuk and like
Swoboda to a lesser extent. These, like
he's
maybe
probably
more of a 4C, but still, if
everything
hits, he's a 3C.
Yeah, they're picking that profile, and so I'm not mad about it. It's just interesting.
I get it.
Who's gonna turn out with this? But I like
you need that. You need that for a winning team. You can't staff a team. I haven't seen it yet where you staff a team with Celebrini, Smith, and Misa down the middle. I just you just need to move pieces around. That's
yeah, but he has all of the like. This isn't like a Thomas Bordeleau type pick. This isn't like because he's a second round USNTDP guy, so similar to Bordeleau and Michigan and all that stuff too. But he's more of a all of around, likely going to be a center, even if he's not like ideal size at the NHL level. He fits all of that mold. So
like Jack Drury, if
Jack Drury is a great comp. Yeah, that's a good one. So not the most like exciting pick, but at day 2 and 53 in this draft, hey, that's really good.
I'm actually starting to talk myself into this draft more. So I actually might change my grade. Let's save our grades to the end, but because my general thought,
the first 4 were good, I will say.
Yeah. If I was gonna half wall hockey this before we get to your half wall hockey pick, that I might have taken another swing here at a high ceiling guy, a guy that if everything hits, he might pop you 30 goals. He might be a top 6 player instead of maybe a sneaky but safe player, safe type of player. Good pick here, good value, but a safe type of player. I know that I'm going to say his name wrong, but the Ivan Rabakin.
Yep.
Right. Went to what? Ryabakin?
I think it's Ryabkin.
Oh, Ryabkin. Okay. Anyway, he's not a Shark anyways. But he went 62 to Carolina. I know that supposedly he had a poor combine interview, stuff like that. Shout out to actually met him at the draft last year, but Ezra from the Muskegon Lumberjacks is hanging a lot with him. He has dealt a lot with Rabakin, and he says he's a great kid. So just maybe misunderstood, maybe language, but I don't know. But just that he was upset with how Rabakin was portrayed after the combine. And so anyway, a guy like that who is very talented, and if he hits, then I don't know what he is if he hits, but there might be a top 6 kind of like legit upside there.
Yeah, the skill is there, right? The skill more so than any of the other guys that were picked probably in the second round.
Yeah, so that's kind of but now we talked about Ravensbergen and and Wang is a ceiling guy, and Ravensbergen is actually that's the same idea too, that you're hoping to draft a number 1 goalie. Basically, number 1 goalie, a star goalie could be more impactful than virtually any player in the first round, maybe even Schaefer than Misa, right? And so those are kind of like the big bets there, the gambles there. Whereas then 53, then you're like, okay, let's stop gambling here a little bit and let's go a little bit. Hey, we just need a solid 3C, a legit 3C is so valuable. I always say that. So maybe I'm talking myself into this a little bit, but anyway, I don't know if you have any more to say about Cole, or you want to give us your your 53.
But yeah, I was gonna say something very similar. It's like Cole McKinney is the like it's you've gambled on the last 2 picks. Ravensbergen, it's a goalie, so you're gambling, but and it's also just a way off pick. Could be a different, GM by the time Ravensbergen is playing for the Sharks. Could be the same thing for Simon Wang. But like McKinney, it seems like there's a clearer path to his NHL future.
Right.
Not a super high ceiling one, theoretically. But
he might be an NHL ahead of Ravensbergen and Wang.
Yeah, for sure. He might.
Yeah.
I picked this is classic me. I went 2 safe picks, right, with Spence and Murtag. Spence is still
This is your swing. Okay.
Exciting. Yes, this is my guy I thought and was correct that would not be there at 95 in Cameron Schmidt.
Oh, right, the small dude.
Yeah. So I went with 2 guys with size and some meat on their bones, and then I went with Cameron Schmidt, who does not have size.
one right before the 94, 5'8". Okay.
I swear I was sitting there waiting for that pick, and I was like, if Cameron Schmidt goes after 95, I just wasted the 53rd pick on him. I was gonna be so mad. Not wasted, but I would be like, damn it, I could have got him at 95. I was so but he went 94 because Dallas, of course, was like, you know what? We've done this once or twice.
Yeah, right.
And Stankoven is a better prospect than Cameron Schmidt. I'll say that first. And that's who they got in the late second, I think, with Stankoven. Schmidt's even smaller, but yeah, it's kind of the 1 in a million shot. But in my mind, I had 3 great picks in the first 3, and I think that they have solid chances of being NHLers. Schmidt is like
he won 47, by the way, Stankoven. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Schmidt is like if he hits, he's Brad Marchand. If he doesn't hit, he's not in the NHL. Like that's the whole point. Like if there's no, that's it. And like I wasn't closing the book on the draft of this area, but I was like, screw it. I've got no more, high upside potential at this point, and I've got some. I could choose depth later on, and I chose a bunch of depth after that we'll talk about. But
no more high upside potential.
Yeah, but he's the last one that I was like, yeah, I think this, and Ryabkin was on the board too, and I thought about Ryabkin too, but I think that the way that like people talk about Ryabkin really did worry me. Nobody ever talks about Cameron Schmidt that way, and people like they're like, yeah, he's small, and that's it. That's the only problem with Cameron Schmidt. He's small, but he has an amazing shot. He's a great skater, and he battles hard, and he tries. And it's like Ryabkin, they're like, this guy might not be playing hockey in a year. I don't know. I'm like, there's things that like outside the scouting, so you're like just instead of just watching them, that you're like, yeah, I wouldn't bet on that. So
okay.
That was what I were worried about. So
yeah, I would have been more pumped. Ryabkin's one option at 53, but I actually probably agree with you with Schmidt. But then maybe that's too risky a draft that I've already embarked on. Misa's a safe but great player. Ravensbergen, Wang, and then Schmidt. That's
too risky.
So you actually had into some degree a safer first 4 picks than the Sharks. So,
I did, which was weird. But I needed it. This hopefully Murtag and Spence can be what I think they could be.
Yeah.
It's not the typical guy that I pick either, because like these are not the ones that I go for normally. But
Well,
anyway,
you're building a team. It makes sense. So
got to build a team, man.
you can't. You're not going to win with 12.
Cameron Schmitz.
Yeah, Cameron Schmitz, exactly. So.
Anyway, who's our next one?
Number 95, Teddy Moultrin. Is that? Yeah. I'll learn to say these names, guys. I'm sorry. Especially the Russian kid coming up.
Yeah, this was what I kind of knew. Yeah, that we were getting real lean. Like, I've watched him play. I think he will be. I don't like. I think if you're really thinking about it, I think he can turn out to be maybe a fourth line player at some point.
Okay.
And that's the kind of upside I see. So
really, okay.
But they've done this before, where they've picked a USHL guy that wasn't very exciting, and they pick a good college route and a good development program for them, and then here we go. Like they've done this a few times in the past few drafts, so I'm not going to discount their system at this point, right? Like Laubach and Muldowney have made it. Klees made good steps. Svoboda was a good pick.
Like, they make good steps. Yeah, they haven't made it yet, but
yeah. But they understand that it's not like, because a lot of these guys can just, you pick them and then immediately they're not producing anymore and they flame out, and that's it. And that hasn't happened really for them yet.
Fair. So. Yeah. All these guys you mentioned have had good college and whatnot.
They made progress. So I'm not going to discount it. Whenever I've seen him play, I didn't really love it. But that's just me. He just doesn't seem like he understand like the fundamental understanding of the play around him and how to really push play himself. Like I think he's a good complementary piece in the offensive zone, but I don't know. He just doesn't seem to be pushing play a lot.
Well, a couple of scouts told me in my story about scouts and their scouts outside of the Sharks and their thoughts of this draft. They just can't skate.
Yeah. I think it's part of the pushing play.
I
don't know if we can't skate. Like,
well, just 4 feet. 4 feet. That's what I heard from two separate people. And granted, that's the one thing that is maybe the most teachable thing. Guy that is like that you can get him to average, and he has other skills that can make him into an NHL player.
Yeah. I think it's just like the making decisions at speed thing. But it's what, the 4th round at this point?
Yes, this is. Oh no, this is the third round.
End of the third. And
that's what another scout told me, that I don't see him as a 3rd round pick, but this is maybe the leanness of this draft, that in another year he wouldn't have been a 3rd round pick. Yeah. This is the back half. This is the second to last pick of the 3rd round too, so it's not like he was a high 3rd round pick. But so I don't want to shovel too much on him, because you just you don't know. It is a tougher draft, and for my perspective, from what I heard, just the skating thing, okay, you can work on that, but the other stuff like willingness to battle, desire, things like that, he's got that.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
So
I think the Sharks have not really picked a guy that's not willing to do that, which is interesting. They don't really have any desire for a guy that's not physical.
Yeah.
In any way.
Or compete, right? That's a big thing that Mike talks about, Chris Morehouse. And so that's really important to them.
Yeah. And I don't
like Rabakin, maybe that was a question with the that, right? And so that's why they would have never ever touched him. Maybe they had a Cameron Schmidt as small as he is higher, because at least a Cameron Schmidt, that's not a question with Cameron Schmidt, I imagine too, right?
Yeah, so, he's just 5'7".
He's 5'7", yeah.
So, yeah, and here I am, shitting on the Sharks draft pick. This is the only draft pick that I picked at number 95 that didn't get picked in the NHL draft.
Oh, okay. Who did you have here?
A guy that I saw a lot of, and I still don't understand why he wasn't drafted. Dakota Room-Mullen. Dakota Room-Mullen, defender. If you recognize the name Room, It's the son of the famous female goaltender, who is the only female goaltender. Manon Room, I think her name is.
Oh, Manon Rayom.
Rayum, that's it.
That I know how to say, yeah, because
yes, to make the NHL,
yeah, I
or at
remember
least make
how
a preseason
how
game.
awesome, Manon Rayom was,
So that's not the reason for the draft pick.
Dakota Rayom Mullen. Yeah.
Yes, I was dead set that this guy was going to get drafted, and he didn't. But I really thought he was going to get picked here. He's a great skating defenseman. He's not the. I think it's just because of
Oh,
the
he was ranked by
physicality.
everybody too. Yeah.
It's the physicality issues more than anything. He's not a physical defenseman. He's a stick first defensive defenseman who can make a good pass, and he's mobile. He reminds me a lot of another undrafted, and I keep falling for this guy because I watch them play and I'm like, oh, you can actually do this. Like, you can make a first pass, you can play defense. You're smart in the defensive zone. Maybe not a lot there offensively, but you can at least like get the puck out of the zone. And I did this last year with Thomas Galvez, who's a undersized guy that wasn't drafted. I drafted him in like the 7th round or something. Similar type of player. They make their teams better in very subtle ways. They're depth filler guys, but I really thought, because he adjusted super well to playing in the NCAA. Like, he played the whole year with a very good team, and did well, and played some big minutes throughout their season. I really thought he was going to be drafted, and I thought he was going to be drafted in like the next round, because I would have taken him in that whole round. And I wanted a defenseman in that draft, so he was my best one left. So.
Well, he sounds like, at least for the Sharks or any team, a really good development camp target, free agent target.
Yeah, and he also a guy that, like, say he goes back to Michigan and gets a higher role and puts up a few more points and gains some more pounds, because he's so light. Like, he looks light when you watch him. He looks like
he a real 6 foot? It says he's 6 foot, so at least
maybe 5'11". But he's around that area. He's not like 5'9". He's around that area. He's just light.
Yeah.
So I think teams were scared away from that kind of thing. And this was the only draft. I think there was one defenseman underneath 6 foot that was taken this year in the draft.
Yeah, that's not crazy.
Single one.
Who was that? Who went under 6 foot this year?
Byron Bader says it was Drew Shock.
Okay.
Which is a great name.
Yeah, it was a great name. Okay.
But anyway, that's the I think the teams were scared of it. I think he's still a good hockey player. It's just the same thing with Thomas Galvez. He's also still a good hockey player. We'll see if they ever make the NHL in a free agent capacity, but I thought he was going to be taken. This is the only one, though. The next 4 or 5 picks I took also got drafted. Just
that's pretty good when we get to like the 7th round and stuff, right? So
yep. All right.
Oh, your guy Galvez didn't get drafted this time around too, huh? So
no, people thought he might, because he's had a great. He's still having a great Czech career, and he had a great U20s because he went to the World Juniors. He's a great player. Okay. He's just small, and that's the problem.
On defense, yeah. He's not very offensive either, too, right? So yeah.
He's just a good defender.
That'll do it. That'll do it.
But you never know with these guys. So
okay.
All right, who's next? I'm a little sad about my pick here, because it was the one that I really thought was going to be picked.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. You actually said it right earlier. So Ilyas
Magomed Sultanov.
Oh, you had to let me try.
Okay, go ahead.
6 syllables. Okay. Ilyas Magomed Sultanov. Magomed Sultanov. That sounds
Magomed Sultanov.
Okay. That's not bad. There's a ring to it.
I think that's interesting.
Have you ever seen him play?
No, I only post the draft have I watched anything of him.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your honesty. So I talked with three scouts for my story of the scouts, and the primary guys were like, I don't know. And luckily, I do have a Russian scout Russian ASO scout that I can talk to. And so he gave me his thoughts on them. He's not super high on this guy, but
what did he say?
Here and there. It's in my story. Let me look it up. You haven't read my story?
Oh, it's
It
been a
seemed
busy
like
weekend.
be up your alley. So anyway,
Been a busy weekend. I'm catching up on my stories. I've read through Scott Wheeler's 9,000
yeah,
word
right.
draft retrospective, but we're still getting there. It's been a busy weekend.
Scout says his calling card is physicality, big hits in open space. Needs confidence on puck plays. Pretty good skating. Plays simple and safe enough. He's big, 6'3", left-hander.
Yep.
And but he just said, yeah, but this guy wasn't on my list though. So it's kind of like ceiling of maybe a bottom pairing shutdown guy, right? So
yeah, it's the who was it? It was Axel Landon they took a few years ago. Kind of a similar thing around this
Does
range,
have
right?
that feel, right? Yeah.
Landon's smaller though. Like they just also like this guy's bigger, but
Yeah.
same thing, right? Like hits, likes to hit. Maybe maybe after a couple more years. It is
You
it's
can leave him
interesting.
there for a long time, so that's
Yeah.
fine.
It's interesting because this is the they did a couple draft no-nos, right? Um they took a CHL goaltender, which a lot of is like stat nerd dudes are like cautioning against, and you should
Took a
take
goalie
more.
high too. Yeah.
Yeah, took a goalie high, and then they took a bunch of non-producing defenders, right?
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Wang has no points in the WHL, and then Magomed Sultanov has
yeah.
no points in the MHL.
You want to
The
get to
light,
Sharp. He's not.
yeah,
He's
he's
not
not a
productive. Yeah.
yeah, he's as productive as Rue Mullen, who Rayu Mullen, who didn't get picked, and he's
Right.
2 years older. So in
Magomed Sultanov.
Magomed Sultanov. Anyway, they did a lot of draft no-nos, but you never know. Sometimes those no-nos work out fine, and this is also the draft to do it. Like, not a lot of yeses, right?
There's not a lot of NHLE going on at this
Yeah.
point of the draft, I guess, right? So.
No, even for the forwards, like the forward core was bad. The
yeah.
defender had some interesting choices in the second, but
Yeah.
just not very deep.
Okay, I'm starting to feel a little higher on this draft now. I'm not going through this exercise. But
Yeah.
anyway, though, since you haven't seen him, I guess let's just go with So, and we've talked about what a scout thought of him. So, who did you have at 115 then?
I almost chose at 95. Sorry to go off topic. It molds into itself. I almost chose at 95. The goaltender Lucas Beckman, who got chosen at 97.
Okay.
And so he's like 2 picks later. So I was like, shit, I need a goaltender. So with Petteri Rimponen, which he ended up getting picked, I think, in the 150s. Yeah, 152.
Okay.
Undersized. He's like 6 foot goaltender, overager out of Finland, who had
so fascinating. Sorry to interrupt, but it's so fascinating to see. Like, there's nothing that seems more different for every team than goalie list. So it'll be fascinating to see like a team's goalie list. Like, what was the goalie heavy draft from a couple of years ago? The one that Fowler went in 2023, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I love to see every team's goalie list.
Yeah, I know.
that year, right?
Rimponen played the men's league in Liga this year. 40 games, 912 save percentage. He also went to the World Juniors and put up a 933 and was like the star of the show at the World Juniors this year,
right?
For Finland. So I did the same thing with Thomas Sakanik a few years ago. Went back, watched him, and I was like, shit, this guy is a good goalie. He's just tiny. Like,
would you have drafted this guy if he had Ravensbergen already picked? Like, let's say you kind of meld these drafts. You were kind of like, I just need a goalie. I want to come out with a goalie that I like.
Exactly. I was like, I liked Beckman, who got picked 2 picks later. And then I was like, next goalie is Rimponen, and I like Rimponen. So I needed a goalie, and because the Sharks took Ravensbergen, I also didn't want to be a double copycat.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but like Sakanik ended up, or he's still a good goalie. He's in the AHL. He got himself injured last year and didn't play, but great goalie. I think it just you never know with him. Like, this guy could be excellent.
Yeah.
Even though he's tiny. So
I mean, Dustin Wolf, 7th rounder, right? So
exactly.
Yep.
Just pick a goalie. All right, who we got next? We're almost done. This is a long episode.
Yep. Yeah, we're past 2 hours, so this is dragging like the actual entry draft.
Yes, right.
All right, Zach Sharp at 124.
Yeah, I think somebody posted on Twitter that he was an invite to the, or he was going to be an invite to the.
Yeah. Actually, Morehouse
right?
said that they were going to invite him, but the more they talked about it, they were like, "Well, we like him. We should just."
I like that. I really like that.
Yeah.
I think that's such a cool thing. Like they watched him enough. They were like, because like I hate it when like you could string this guy along, right? Like he's coming to your camps, like you know, well, you got to go back to college, and we'll see you
in
next
fairness,
year.
though, another team could draft him too.
Yes,
so, yeah,
they could. But he is, he's a double overager. He was eligible for the 23 draft, and he's being drafted in the 25 draft. I watched him in the NCAA, and he was like a very, we'll call him integral, but just like a steady piece on their back end. I never was like, this guy's out of place. He made sense. He made sense with his breakouts and like where to go with the puck. And I think he's a good defender. He's got some physicality. It's a good pick. It's just it's an interesting one because he's a double overager and out of the NCAA and not really producing a lot of offense there.
right.
So the likelihood is he kind of ends up being more of a Barracuda guy rather than a Sharks guy. But I don't know. It's a cool story. I think more
The
than
scouts
anything.
I talked about him in my story. They really liked his skating though.
Yes,
That's like a plus element of him. And so I think at this point of the draft, right, if you can
you're
just
picking an
find
element.
a player that has a plus element, and then you can see the rest of it filling out, that maybe you find a bottom pairing defenseman or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what I mean. It's like, even if he's not gonna be like a bottom pairing defenseman, it seems like the plan is already in place, right? Like he plays another year, or even if he never turns out to be an NHLer, the
Yeah,
plan's
I'm not
already in
really
place.
sure what the plan is with him. He can go to Barracuda next year, maybe, right?
He could.
Won a national championships with Western Michigan.
He probably needs more time. He definitely needs more time. But
Okay.
like the plan seems to be in place to be like, oh, let's graduate him to the Barracuda and see where it goes. And I like that idea in this late in the draft. It makes a lot of sense. I liked the idea more than anything else.
Well, who did you pick then in this spot?
Who did I pick? Quinn Bouches. I can't ever say his name. Bouchesny. At this point, I was like,
at this point, I'm drunk.
No, I'm not drunk.
I'm just picking names off the board at this point. Cool sounding names, the coolest names I could find.
No, I'm looking for depth, like guys that might play in the NHL, maybe. And he ended up getting picked by the Penguins at 148.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay. So okay.
But another 6 foot, like not big defender. Maybe he's like a hair over 6 foot. But he, I don't know how to describe him other than like can be a depth piece in the NHL, maybe.
Okay.
But he's also, he played for the U18s for Canada. And he was a good part of their team as well. So he didn't have a lot of scoring. Good skater. That's a bit. And I think the issue is like there's a bunch of these guys that are around this height range of the CHL that never really pan out. They just turn into minor guys. And
Jake Furlong's got like that for the Sharks now.
Yeah, that's actually
right. Yeah,
that's a really good shout. Except for Furlong he's a lefty and he's a righty, but that's a similar thing. It's like has a lot of elements, but nothing special. And I wouldn't say I was like Susu jazzed about this part of the draft.
Well, yes, that's what we're talking about. Yeah, like you want to go on to 150 now?
Yes, I'm Max
Heiss. And looking at this, the greatest problem was that they missed their chance to draft Mans Ghouls.
I know. I couldn't.
This is the greatest problem I have with drafting Max Heiss.
I couldn't decide if that guy's nickname is Mongoose or if it's just like Goose.
Man's goose.
Man's goose. Which somebody on the draft thing was like, no, I don't think it was actually on the broadcast. It was somebody was talking about it. They're like, I've seen that guy let in a lot of bad goals. And then I was like, that was their breakdown of Man's goose. And I was like, at least you're honest. At least you're honest.
Yeah.
I think
he also missed a chance too. Dallas stole another guy from the Sharks there. Dawson Sharkey.
I know. Sharky went. Damn it. Yeah.
Yeah, we're at that point in the draft, guys. Okay, so Max Heist. So
I know
you have seen him play, or no, you have not, right?
No.
He's Penticton, right? Yeah, that's a tough one, but
no, I have not. He's an overager of the BCHL.
Yeah. I did talk with a scout who has seen him, and 6'3", obviously that stands out, but also to a great room guy, or has been at least, and so that's a guy that maybe can just work his ass off in an NHL. So it's not a bad bet. And he's a guy that grew from he had, I think, just to hit 6 goals or something 2 years ago in his first draft. He's an overager. His draft eligible year. And he popped off for 27 goals in, what was it, like 50 games or something like that. So definitely getting better. And with the size, there's some upside there, physical upside, and he's going to Michigan State in 2 years, so they see something in him, a little bit like Wang. So these, you talk about these good programs, right? And they see something in a player, and so you kind of bet on that, and you bet that he develops well. He's going to play for Prince Albert and WHL next year, so there's something there. Probably will never make the NHL, for being honest, but at this point in the draft, and especially in this draft, there are worse picks too.
Yes, there are.
So anyway, who did you pick at 150?
Carlos Handel, which is honestly,
okay.
Yeah, if you took like a carbon copy of the 3 defenders that I took in this draft,
177, by the way, to the Canadians. So.
Yeah, so he got picked right after, like 20 picks after. So I was happy he got picked because I was already like sweating the Dakota pick. I was like, oh shit, if I pick another defender that's not, I'm like, not good at this. But Handel also had a good U18s. He was captain of Team Germany. He good skater, not very physical. I feel like I'm just kind of copying the
well, you're just finding a tool that you like, and skating is a good tool to pick.
Skating and defensive mind more than anything.
Okay,
like, I like the way that him, Buchesny, I think it's Buchesny or Buchesny, I can't ever say, or Boucher. I don't know. And Dakota, and like how they defend. Like they're not passive. They're not lost. A lot of CHL defenders are lost at this level. So it was a fine pick, and he ended up going pretty recent, or pretty quickly after. So I was happy with that. And he's a righty, and my team has all lefties. My team is all Bouillon, Hudson, and Cagnoni, and a bunch of lefties, and Handel's a righty. So yeah, that's honestly at some point what you're looking for, I think. Handedness.
Okay. So now, drum roll,
our final pick.
No drum roll? Yeah, our final pick.
Oh man, we're getting down to the wire here.
Yep. Alexander Gallant.
Richard Gallant.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Alexander Gallant used to actually fight for the Barracuda.
Yes, he did. Good point. That's a good.
Sorry, I typed it wrong.
Gerard Gallant.
Yeah, sorry, Richard. Gerard Gallant is a clown. Or no, Pete is the clown.
Oh, there it is. I honestly was like kind of. They did the classic small guy just take a swing pick, and I love it. I did not think the Sharks were going to do this. 5'8" player out of the USHL creative. You can picture him in your USNTV. You can picture him in your mind as like the smaller, lots of not lots of skill, but enough skill, can make plays. He also is not a not physical guy, so he can be physical. He doesn't have no ability to play the dots and that kind of thing. So
my source with a great comp here, Colin Blackwell. So
hey, also a 7th round pick of the Sharks, wasn't he?
Yep. Yes, another 7th round pick who, has fashioned a good career as a energy guy.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I was like, oh, cool. I just did not. I thought they would pick another 6'7", no scoring defender out of the BCHL and be like, call it a day.
Yeah, good for Richard too. Yeah, he actually has scored some goals this past year, so he has good looking NTDP numbers.
And he's going to Harvard, so that we could just continue that he's going to Boston. You know, like you have to pick a guy that's going from the USNTDP going to Boston. That's all you have. That's all we can do. But that's a really good pick. I think. I don't know if really good's the right word. It's the I thought
it's good for the area of the draft. So.
Yes, I thought they were going to trade out of the pick. I really did, because they've done that before too.
Right. A number of teams did that. I think 7th, they're starting to be more like, let's just I don't want to make this pick.
Sign her.
I don't want to make this picks.
Speaking of which, I chose Philip Ekberg, who was chosen by the Carolina Hurricanes at 221.
You knew that would be your guy right there.
You knew it. You knew it. I basically was like, I had filled out the wings. I had got Misa. We did a swing with Schmidt. Then I did a bunch of depth defenders, took a goalie, and then I took one last offensive small winger, because I cannot help myself. Because I cannot help myself.
Why Ekberg over Gallant? They're obviously both small wingers. Gallant does sound like he's more defensively minded. So is it more of the bet with Ekberg that
honestly, it was
like your mini Stankoven or something like that? Just like just this offensive pop there. Gushin, something like that.
I think it's more of like a Gushin megalite, but it was more the U18s, and that's like it's not. You should never do that with a high draft pick, right? You should never draft a pick from the 3rd because he had a great U18s or whatever. But in the 7th, Ekberg had the most points ever for a U18 player for Sweden. So, and watching him play in that game, he was on, like, in those tournament games, he was on fire, and in a way that, like, you're like, okay, yeah, I can see it. It is the U18s, and like if you have a bit of skill more than your teams around you, especially against like the lower levels, you could just torch them, and he did.
Right.
So you take that, you run with it. But I think very unlikely to ever really pan out. But
sure, of course. I mean, if in this draft, like if Ravensbergen or Wang hit their ceiling, you expect Misa to, because that's number 2 pick. So it'd be massively disappointing if he doesn't. And you get one regular NHLer out of the rest of the draft. It's outstanding. That's a great draft.
That's how most drafts are.
Yeah, exactly. That's how most drafts are. Misa is a first-line player, like he is supposed to be. Ravensbergen is a starter, or Wang is, say, a solid top 4 shutdown guy. Either of those things happen. And then the rest of this list, let's say Mago Med Sultanov, I just want to practice saying his name again, becomes a solid bottom pairing guy, or something like that. Yeah. Great draft. Great draft.
Amazing draft. You're just looking for 2 NHLers.
Yeah.
And if you can get like 2 impact NHLers, you are way above most drafts.
Right.
So
right. So
I think the Sharks did okay.
Did okay. Drum roll. Hold on. Okay. Okay, now we're wrapping up our draft grades.
Oh, for the Sharks?
We're doing now, right? Yeah.
Okay.
We're summarizing. Yeah.
Do you want to give a grade? Do you want to give a grade
first? No. Oh, you want me to go first?
B-.
Oh wow. Okay. I am actually
wait. B.
Okay.
B.
Okay. Why? a lot of the maybe you haven't read all of them, but like I think
they're all
Stephen
A's.
Ellis gave it an
A
A+.
pluses.
Well, who else? I haven't read the other ones. What?
Yeah, I guess on because they got Misa, it's an A. So that's
it's
the
also
real
on a
answer.
perv. It's a weak draft too, right? So I mean that's part of it too, right? So
yeah, I think there was just one too many guys that. Yes, you can try and talk yourself into them becoming NHLers, but and more than anything, it was just that they didn't try and go up to grab a defender, and that kind of maybe a little.
Well, maybe they did, right? I mean, we don't know.
Maybe
that.
they did.
So
yeah, you're right. Or they didn't.
30-33, they could have traded into the range to get Aitchison or that, right? Or
I would have felt
somebody, Cameron Schmidt or somebody, but maybe
Mhm.
teams were like, well, like we know what's waiting for us at 30-33, so we're gonna keep our 18th pick or whatever. So,
Yeah, I know. There's no way to know if they tried or didn't try, and then
right.
maybe they really just didn't believe that those guys are even worth that trade up. So
Right.
like that's the other thing is you want those big names, but they may not be worth it. And I think trying to hope the Fiddlers and everything are the right D of the future is also just hoping. So
Okay.
don't try to fit the square peg in the round hole kind of thing. But I did want it seemed a little passive, I think, overall. I wanted some movement.
Well, again, I don't think we know that though. That's the thing, right? So
true.
That's that'd be my argument. So actually, I came into it thinking that I would give it a B, but looking at how hard it was to eke out picks,
it really was,
even from like basically 95 on.
Yep.
That I'm gonna give it A-. And
fair enough.
At first, I didn't. I thought, hey, you can swing higher the McKinney 153 and 95 with Moultrie, but they swung high with Ravensbergen and Wang, and I like both picks. I have no issue with both picks, and so I understand maybe going a little more with McKinney going a little more safer. One scout told me that this guy's gonna play in NHL, like for sure. May just be a fourth line center. May hopefully he gets the 3C, but he's gonna play. And with Moultrie, when we got to that point, you and I were talking about it. Well, there weren't a lot of options available. There are guys that you liked more, or maybe I would have liked more, but there just weren't a lot of options available.
No, there wasn't.
Right. There wasn't a Cameron Schmidt waiting right there, for example.
Well, there was at 94.
It was 94, but not 95, right? And I guess they could have traded. 95 is a point where it's probably easier to make a trade and up. But nonetheless, though, the specific pick and what they had in front of them, well, you picked a guy that wasn't even drafted, right? So,
I did.
Yeah. Well, it just tells you how it's not a criticism of you. It just tells you that 95 was not, end of the third round was not the most enviable position in this draft, is all. That's the point.
Yes, for sure.
I'm trying to make. So I don't really have that much of an issue with that pick anymore. And after that, it just like, well,
no, yeah. After that, you're kind of just like, I honestly was picking guys that I remember seeing at some point and going, oh yeah, he's pretty good. Like
I liked him for a period. I saw shit. He looked good.
No, like because I would watch them in more than World Juniors than anything else, because those are the guys that like they popped more than anything.
Right.
Is when you could see them there, and they're on a bigger stage, and you're like, oh, okay, you can see that. So that's kind of what I was going for, because like
I think go ahead.
Yeah, but that's true. Like that's what they're doing too. They're seeing Magomed Sultunov and going,
you see something.
Yeah.
Morehouse said that was the guy that the entire scouting room did like, and they do watch the video. As I mentioned in the story that they don't have a Russia area, or they don't have a Russia base scout now, but they have a Russia area scout, but not a Russia living in Russia scout. But they end up just doing it together and watching video. They have a guy that points out Nikolai Latikin, who lives in the Ukraine and has been the Russia area scout for a long time, going back to the Doug Wilson era. And he points out the guys that he likes, and then everybody watches and kind of works off of that kind of.
Yep.
So they said that was a guy that they all agreed on, basically. So So trusting that. But I think in a different draft, I would have been like, 95 Teddy Moultron. Don't love that. But this is different. This is not one of the stronger drafts. And so, yeah. So I actually looking back at this, they went for the easy pick in Misa. They went for the swing in Ravensbergen, the swing in Wang, and then they went a little safer with McKinney. And those are your kind of your premium picks in this draft. And
it's the first 4, yeah.
Yeah, and that's I'm fine with that. I did say that, it would have been cool to get Rybakin or with Schmidt where you had him 53, but after they swung on Ravensbergen and Wang,
you got to get something safer.
You can kind of see that, that you don't necessarily want to keep swinging, because literally when you get to the back half of the draft, that's all you're doing.
Yeah, and I think again the Ravensbergen pick, if he turns out, great. If he doesn't, then you still have a great trade chip for the future. Or not that he doesn't turn out, but like he's going to be around for a while to build up your goalie pipeline, which is barren aside for Astrov.
Right. That's not fair too. Yeah,
it's like you've got Kirsch.
They don't have. Astrov's not going to be a prospect next year, and
exactly. So you need that. So it was still part of a bigger working of their need to get Ravensbergen, and it's a good value there. And then Wang is, we're gonna see. Watching him is very funny. Like it's an interesting experience watching him play, as it doesn't. It's not often that you see that kind of player play in a league like the CHL. But he wasn't horrible. It's just like he doesn't like the decision making was really, really slow. And
what, 2 assists in 37 games or something.
Yeah, it's just super slow. But his skating is really good, and like his size is really good, and like boxing.
He's actually competent defensively based on the scouts I talked to. That he's actually 100%. Good defensively for that level already.
I think it's just hard for guys that are half a foot shorter than him to get him
right, and he can skate too, like he can. So obviously, but again, no issues in end for me with this draft, really. And based on what you said, and I trust you, that not losing any sleep over missing out on Blake Fiddler.
Yeah, I mean, now Blake Fiddler's gonna be Drew Doughty, and it's gonna be the end of it's gonna be your Mark-Edouard Vlasic in the second round. God damn it! You never want to bet against like NHL bloodlines either, because they always seem to find a way to make the league, right? Like they always do.
They always make the league, at least for like a couple games, just so they can have a nice like between periods story, up close
with his dad in the stands waving. That's what no matter what, that always happens. So Fiddler will make the NHL no matter what. So if that's what you were going for, but I do like, and again, I like Fiddler. There was definitely a shelf of defensemen that I felt comfortable with getting a good. I think they fell to 30 somehow.
Well, if you insisted on picking a defenseman in that where the Sharks picked Simon Wang, the ones I went after, the ones I went immediately after, who would you have picked? Rombach, Fiddler, Amico, Ketos. Those are the 4 that go right after.
Fiddler. But that's not but I had Wang like later. So but like Wang is also like, I get it why he's not like, even if you rank him in the 50s, you might take him at 33 because like someone's gonna do it. So it's an interesting story, and I really appreciate that from the Sharks for sure.
Okay, all right.
But yeah, I think Fiddler's the safest the option to actually be an NHLer out of those guys. So
okay,
yeah,
all right. That's
a wrap. That's all we got. Oh, and actually, my pick that I had an oops moment. I ended up choosing Cameron Schmidt. 20 seconds after I chose Max Pesanica. And Max Pesanica was chosen, or Seneca. I can't say his name either.
Oh, I see. He went 46 to Utah.
He went 46. Right? And I did not see. I did not see him go 46 to Utah, and I was like, shit.
Okay.
So then somebody on Twitter was like, "You chose a guy that's already been chosen."
You almost
so I was
got
like,
your pick forfeited there.
so I said, "Oh no, wait, Cameron Schmidt," and I changed it because that was just because he also fit the mold of I needed a right-handed D, and he's pretty good. So, anyway, I had a great time. It was a fun draft. It's just what was it 2020 that was kind of like this, where it was like, no, maybe it was 20. Trying to look through the draft years. No, I think it was 2020 where yes, there was like guys like Robbins and Bordelot and stuff, but like they're just yeah, kind of fell off a cliff after that.
Yeah.
Got a couple guys in the later rounds here, but not a lot. Anyway, we gotta go to bed, Sheng.
Well, you've got to. It is 3 a.m. So yeah.
A little bit late.
I'm gonna try to get this out to you guys. So, but Keegan needs to go to sleep.
That's true.
We will join you after free agency, so we'll talk about that. So hopefully there is some. Let's not call it excitement, but let's just hope the team gets better. Even gets marginally better for the sake of Macklin and Michael and Will and Yarrow.
Yeah, and so I hope you all have a good week. I have a cool thing to show everybody. Real quick,
I'm gonna end the show.
Yes, I do. Oh, wait, hold on. I don't want to end the recording. Oh, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this. So on this thing, you can see a woven in T-shirt.
That's the closest the Sharks have been to Stanley Cup in a long time.
2006. This was a T-shirt that I had from 2006 that my grandmother.
What to say? One team.
It says one team, and she wove it into this quote with a bunch of other childhood memories.
Oh, that's awesome! Quilt. Yeah, your grandma made that for you. It's a quilt. Okay, that's awesome.
Yes. So it's got actually there's a old school Coyotes logo on there too.
Oh yeah, the Kachina.
No, it's not that old. It's the Howl one.
The Howl, just the Coyote. Okay, cool.
Yeah, but it's the whole blanket. I'm up in my family's home, so there's a bunch of old. The cabin, the old bunch of old.
The cottage, yeah.
Yes, the cottage. Yeah, she made it into a quilt that sits on that bed.
Very
She's
nice.
Yes. Anyway, so that was one of my first Sharks T-shirts.
You should have won that. Wait, no, I don't want to get it too many. We got to end this, but related to Scott Hannon again, or no? That's not.
He was on that team.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, that
no,
one
but
team.
That's not your side. That's related to Scott. I forget.
Oh, it is. Yeah, that's the same side.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
No, well, I guess no, it's not because it's my grandfather's side. So it's grandmother, and they're married, not related. Related. My grandmother did that. So anyway, I hope you all have a good week. We will see you. I gotta go to sleep. We will see you next week. Bye, y'all.